Are you looking for a fulfilling career? Peoria Unified School District has openings at all levels. With outstanding benefits and professional growth opportunities, there's something to help you feel fulfilled and appreciated each and every day. Join the community where experienced educators have their expertise valued, where new teachers are supported from day one, and where those who are passionate about education reach their full potential. Welcome to Peoria Unified School District, where every day is an opportunity to make a difference. Visit us online.
One more minute. Welcome everybody to tonight's board meeting. I will call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to welcome Dr. Summers to Peoria Unified School District. We are so excited to have him officially. up here on the dais for his first board meeting. And we also want to welcome all the people that are joining us via live stream and who will be joining us via YouTube in the future. It's always exciting to see great participation in this process. That being said, let's get started with our opening exercises, our moment of silence, and then our Pledge of Allegiance led by Mrs. Rooks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are going to be moving on to Section 3, Address Agenda 3.1, Address Agenda and considering adoption or recommending changes. Board members, is there any changes that you want to see tonight? We'll start with Mrs. Ewing.
I don't have any, thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, I'd like to pull from consent 5.14, please. The Mental Health Service Professionals Demonstration Grant.
President Proudfit,
Yes.
administration recommends that the board consider tabling consent item 5.14 until a future governing board meeting where administration will bring the item back as an action item.
There's been a request to table item 5.14 for a future board meeting. Great. All right, Mrs. Rooks, any changes for you?
No, but I will second Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We have motion made by Mr. Sandoval, second made by Mrs. Ewing. Do we? Oh, I'm sorry. Mrs. Rooks. Looking at her, thinking of you. Okay, do we need to vote on this here now? We don't, right? It goes back down. We're going to vote right
We are
now.
going to vote to approve these changes real quick. Let me
Okay,
just
perfect.
type out the motion.
And then I have no additional changes. Oh, yes, and we need to go through a voice vote. Obviously, Dr. Sorensen is not here, so if you can run us through a voice vote. Dr. Sorensen, did you have any additional changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll start with the voice vote. Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing,
Yes.
President Proudfit,
Yes. Motion passes with 5 yeses, so we will be adopting the agenda minus 5.14, which is being tabled for a later meeting. Moving on to Section 4, recognitions. Invite Ms. Aries to the stand.
Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the board, and all of our guests that have joined us this evening. We certainly hope you had an opportunity to enjoy our reception this evening, welcoming Dr. Summers to his very first meeting here in our school district and to Peoria Unified Family. On behalf of our cabinet and our entire district, we are just so thrilled to have you here with us, Dr. Summers, so welcome. Well, as you enjoyed the reception, you likely were able to walk by and taste some of those delicious treats. I wanted to share that they were provided on behalf of our students from Ironwood High School. They are in our advanced cooking and professionals class there, and that was actually one of their final projects as they are rounding down to graduation, was preparing that food for us this evening. So we want to give them a big round of applause. An A+ for me on whatever that steak was on that little crostini. It was certainly delicious. So we know a lot of time went into that. So we want to thank them very much. You also probably enjoyed the incredible sounds from Mr. Brian Evans, the director of bands, and his talented elementary jazz honor band featuring students from Frontier Elementary School, Coyote Hills Elementary, and Peoria Traditional School. We invited them here to join us this evening for the welcome reception for Dr. Summers. And so fitting that tonight we are honoring and recognizing the talents from the musicians that we have here all across the Peoria Unified School District as we are highlighting the Peoria Unified and the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival. So this recognition is really special, and we're really glad that those students had an opportunity to join us in representing the arts tonight and bringing a little bit of that into our board meeting this morning. The Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival is an incredible partnership that we have with the city of Peoria. It's an annual event that highlights the talents of our students and our arts educators from across the district. And on Saturday, March 2nd, more than 3,000 students performed at Peoria City Hall's campus. We had dance, choir, theater, band, and strings. The event included more than 130 artboards featuring more than 3,000 pieces of visual art from students in pre-K through 12th grade. If you had an opportunity to be out there, it was nothing short of remarkable, and we are just so thrilled to be able to continue this wonderful partnership with the city of Peoria. We estimate that there were more than 14,000 people in attendance, which I believe makes that about the second largest event in the city of Peoria. Certainly an event not to miss. And to continue that true sense of community, there were tents, and a big fan favorite, we had food trucks out there, so we were encouraging families to really stay and enjoy the entire day. It's something, an event, really a day, and so much that goes into it, and so much hard work. We're so proud of those efforts, and it is none other than the leader of our arts education department that's responsible for pulling all of this together with his team. And I want to take just a quick moment to recognize the leadership of Mr. Robert Panzer, who I believe has joined us this evening. We can give him a big round of applause. Stacy Hamilton and Alex Dillmore on his team, and they do a tremendous job. And there are so many wonderful arts educators that work so hard with our students all year long to make sure that this event is a success, but really to make sure that our students shine that day. And it was a beautiful day to be out there. All of those arts educators are supported by the leadership team that works collaboratively that day to pull all of this together. This includes, and I believe we have some of them here tonight, so I'm hoping they make their way out and they give a big wave if they're standing in the back. Frank Eager, Cheryl Tucker, Sarah Scoggins, Samantha Rogers, Richard Robles, and Molly Trivellin. And there are many others who were a part of the Arts Festival leadership team that weren't able to join us tonight, but Lauren Walker, Aaron Heinen, Julie Lujan, Sam Spencer, Jeffrey Malone, Leah Shanley, Jacob Osorio, Brooke Durbrow, and Kelly Freeman, Tonya Richter, Arturo Rivera Valenzuela, and Chris Henderson. We just thought we should name all of them for their remarkable achievements. Another huge factor that contributes to the success of this event, and I mentioned, is our partnership with the city of Peoria. We spend countless hours collaborating with them, typically beginning in September for the upcoming year. And I'm so thrilled that we had from the city of Peoria, the arts and culture manager, Mr. Bill Moss, who is here tonight. And what I'd like to do, there's so many in this group, and I'm sure board members, you have some comments that you want to share, but what I'll do is invite Mr. Moss and Mr. Panzer, if you would join me at the podium, and I know our governing board will certainly have some comments to share, and you can certainly receive those on behalf of our entire team. So another big round of applause for the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival.
I kind of want to start us off. I know that's not typical, but this event, so incredible from start to finish. I have kids in the district. I was surprised when I walked in. Actually, my husband and I went, and my daughter had 2 pieces of art in there that she just forgot to tell us about. So I was very excited to see that. But what an exceptional day that it was. Such a great gathering point for families, seeing the ceramics demonstration, seeing all the different performing arts groups, and just seeing the wide scope of arts education that's offered in our district was, first of all, a ton of fun. The food trucks were exceptional. I went home with a stomach ache because it was that good. But just seeing the community come together and rally around seeing these kids perform. And the performing arts, for my students, have been so crucial. For one of my sons, who ended up, because of the great kind of mentorship of a teacher, ended up doing theater, which was not on his scope at all. He was a rugby kid, but totally changed his life, and just how important the arts are. And it absolutely highlighted the event. I love that it was at City Hall, and it was, you know, as the mayor said in his thing, the front lawn of the city. And it was such an incredible event. So thank you for being dedicated to this event. And I know strategically it's got to be a huge, massive undertaking for everyone, and for each and every family that showed up, for every student that was willing to, you know, put their heart out there with their work. It was just absolutely a wonderful day. So thank you. Mrs. Ewing?
I would like to echo that. Thank you for all the effort and for your teams that put in such dedication to this event. I know that this year it was at a different, was in a different location. So as Mr. Panzer, you told me you had to remap and rebuild the entire layout of that this year, and I thought it was amazing. I love that our community gets an opportunity to see all of the arts programs that we have, and I urge you, all of you, that if you have not been out to any of our arts performances, they are amazing. My mother-in-law, who came, and she's went to some of the plays and so forth, and she goes to a lot of Broadway type plays, and she says these students are of that caliber. So we really have very, very talented students, and that says a lot for the program that you've built, Mr. Panzer, here in Peoria. And I also appreciate the time that you took to take us around and really give us an in-depth on all of the different programs and what they're doing. So if you see him at an event, at an arts program, seek him out, because he'll tell you everything about the program. It's really great. So I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate the partnership, and I hope this event continues to grow. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, no, thank you both for that. And Mr. Panzer, Mr. Massamid, it's this event, I just can't think of a better opportunity or platform, right, to not only bring the community together, but also showcase the excellence that exists within Peoria Unified from an arts perspective, our performing arts, you know, certainly our visual arts. You know, it's just it shows the amount of intentionality that our teachers have on nurturing the creativity of our students across the district. And it's just such a great program that instills courage in all of those individuals. So again, it's a great partnership. Thank you, Mr. Moss and the City of Peoria, for continuing that relationship and understanding just the impact that it has, not just on the community, but even for our students. I mean, to experience the ability to bring their artwork and perform out into a setting outside of the district and in front of a big audience, I mean, that takes a lot of courage. So thank you both, and congratulations again on a successful event.
Dr. Sorensen?
I'm always so grateful for our arts teachers and the things it teaches our students and the critical thinking involved in the creation of that art, and just very, very grateful for our strong arts programs in Peoria. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rooks?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo fellow board members up here and obviously recognize the others in the back for all of the hours that you spent and working with the students and setting up for that day. And I'm sorry I was not able to make it, but I have just heard just from families, from the community, seeing the pictures everywhere on, you know, Facebook and social media, that it just looked like a really awesome event put together. And I want to thank both of you guys for, you know, brainstorming and moving it to where the City Hall was, because I do like what you said there with front and center. That's where our homegrown city is. That's where it starts. And so I just want to say thank you to you guys for creating this event, making it open so that parents can come and see what their kids have been working on and all of their hard work, and then they get to show off to their parents all of the things that they have been working on the whole year. So thank you to you guys, and thank you to everybody in the back of the room. And I do want to give a shout out to Mrs. Shanley, because that's my kid's band teacher too, and she's amazing. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Moving on to section 4.2, board member comments. Mrs. Ewing?
Thank you. I just would like to talk a little bit about all of the great partnerships that Peoria has, and because of those partnerships, our kids have great opportunities. And so this week, I was at the Retiree Leadership Academy, and we were over at the Smart Center, which is part of Sunrise Mountain High School campus. And they were showcasing all of the arts program there. We got to see the Arts Center in that Smart Center, which used to be the Challenger Center. Thank you. The Challenger Space Center. It's a really great space. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to check out all the great things that happen there. And then I got an opportunity to hear about all our great CTE programs. And those programs would not be able to happen without all of our great partnerships with our businesses who help mentor those students and so forth. So I just really appreciate all the partnerships that Peoria has. You know, if you have any other businesses that you know of that want to partner with us, let me know. So thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, thank you. So this week I visited a couple of our programs, robotics, in our athletic training program that takes place at Ironwood, robotics at Cactus. But while we have great programs in existence, for me, what I left away with is just the excellence that exists within those programs, the way the students spoke. We had a 7th grader in the robotics program who was up front and center speaking in front of adults, very articulate with a lot of confidence and courage. Just amazing individuals that we call our young scholars. So I just want to thank, Barb Coakley from our CTE program perspective. She directs all of our CTE programs, but all of the CTE teachers that we have across the district. Again, how you continue to inspire hope into our students, give them courage and confidence as they navigate their path beyond Peoria Unified. So thank you.
Dr. Sorensen?
No comments from me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rooks?
So yeah, I just wanted to welcome everybody back from the spring break, and I hope you guys had a great, relaxing break. First, I did want to welcome Dr. Summers into transitioning into our district, and I wanted to thank Mr. Molino for all of his hard work through that transition piece in the past year. I also I've been touring a lot of schools the past couple weeks. I toured Sunset Heights Elementary, so thank you to Principal Ray Connolly and the staff. And it was also great to see one of the teachers I had at Frontier, Mrs. Thompson. So we got to see her in her classroom. Thank you to Zuni Hills Elementary, the principal and assistant principal. I got to have a tour there with the principal of the day, student Mr. Todd. And so he got to give a tour to me and Mr. Nuttall, who's not here this evening, and just go around the school and talk about what's so great at his school, what he really enjoys and what he looks forward to every day, and get to have that principal role. So that was pretty awesome to see. Thank you to Principal Corbett at Marshall Ranch Elementary for the tour. And it was also just a shock to see the assistant principal there, Mr. Jacoya, was my husband's teacher at Sunrise Mountain High School. So he even remembered me and my husband. So that was just a pretty awesome experience to see that. And I know a lot of us attended the school safety conference in Glendale. So I just wanted to thank the principals, Mr. Rawlings and Mrs. Bennett. They attended it. And it was a really great presentation. There was the SRO from Liberty High School, Lisa Hale, was there. So it was just really great to see all of the, the collaboration around protecting our kids in these schools. I did want to make note that Sunrise Mountain alumni was featured on Fox 10 News for saluting as Naval Air Crewman, 2nd Class, Gavin Swarenson. He is part of the Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron, serving on board the USS Mobile in South China Sea. I wanted to thank him for our service, and what's really just great to see his growth from when he was at Sunrise Mountain High School to where he is now is he's my husband's cousin. And so just to see that journey that he took in our district to see where he is now is just amazing. I also wanted to bring up that we had one of our teachers in our district from Peoria Traditional was featured in the Peoria Independent Peoria Hometown Hero in the teacher category. And I don't want to screw up her name, but it's Mrs. Trisha Chisnecka. And I just wanted to give a shout out to her and everything that she does at Peoria Traditional for her students, working with the parents. And I'm so thankful that she was chosen to be honored for all of her hard work in our district and working with the kids. The last thing I'm going to end on is I did want to say something to our community in response of a story that has been in the news. And I just wanted to say that I'm truly sorry to those victims and the families that were affected. And I wanted to make sure that I will hold accountability. And I want to say thank you to our administrators at Peoria High School, the Peoria Police Department, along with the school resource officer for the reporting and investigating. And I will always work towards ensuring safety and protection for children in this district.
Thank you. There were a few things I wanted to highlight. The Safety and Security Conference was absolutely incredible. This has been a little bit of a heavy week. A lot of you know I was appointed to this board, and I am a very new member. And since being appointed, I don't know if you all know, but these are volunteer positions. To say that this has been more than a full-time job would be the understatement of the century. Being the 4th largest school district in Arizona comes with many, many successes and so much good that's happening. And with that also comes a lot of challenges. And I have worked really hard to get on every campus. We kind of halted tours for a minute because we have testing coming up and don't want to disrupt the learning. But next month we'll be resuming with those. We've had a lot of great things happen, but on a week like this week, it can all feel just heavy. There's a lot more that we can do. One thing I will say is that, like you, I was a mom who just loves the district, whose kids are in the district, and came to these meetings and cared deeply. And to be actually accurate, I was probably one of the ones sitting in their sweatpants who are watching the live stream for most of the meetings. And now I find myself sitting on this board. And one thing I have learned, as we have had probably more executive sessions in the past, since I've been brought on, probably ever before, is that it is vitally important what we do, and it's even more important how we do it. This room is full of people. We probably all don't agree with each other. We come from different walks of life and experiences, but being able to sit here in this room together and discuss hard things together as a community with our students in mind and the good of the students as our focus is the thing that can unite us. For myself, that's what I want to see as a parent in this district, and as board president, that's also what I want to see. So thank you all for being here. Okay, moving on to section 4.3, superintendent comments. Dr. Summers. Wasn't sure where to look first here.
That's okay. I think Mr. Molino has officially handed a baton, so thank you, Mr. Molino. Thank you, President Proudfit, members of the governing board, as well as guests. There's a phrase that I often used during my tenure as a high school principal was pack the house, and so it's nice to see a packed house, even in a board setting. So I sit here with you tonight and I'm filled with a profound sense of responsibility and commitment to our students, our families, and our staff. And this is what drove me to accept this role in our great district. So I want to thank you for the gracious and the warm welcome, including tonight's positive welcome reception, because I truly feel blessed to be here in Peoria Unified with you all. And in my introductory remarks, I initially intended to speak to my tenure as incoming superintendent with an inspiring focus on our shared vision for educational excellence. But recent events have also compelled me to begin in a slightly different direction. As was just mentioned, our community may have seen and heard news related to 2 Peoria High School employees that happened yesterday that was really difficult and is very difficult to process. I want to emphasize that our district is fully cooperating with law enforcement partners in their investigation, and we will work tirelessly and collaboratively towards our commitment to the safety and well-being of our students, which will always be our top priority. So before I move on, I simply want to express and reiterate my gratitude for the trust that you have all placed in me to lead our district in both good times as well as challenging times. Through any change or challenge, we will come together and grow for the benefit of our students, rooted in the values of integrity, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to the safety and welfare of all. So in the past 9 days, I've had the opportunity to see so much of what makes Peoria Unified a special place to learn and to work. And in addition to taking part in our Pride of Peoria presentations, there are just a few highlights I want to share. On Saturday, Peoria High School inducted 17 alumni into their Hall of Fame for contributions to their school, community, and country. Cotton Bowl in Alta Loma, in partnership with the City of Peoria Police Department, held a bike safety event this past Saturday to bring awareness to our community, which is another wonderful example of this partnership. And Jordan Augustine from Ironwood High School received the Spirit of Cotton Award from the Phoenix Suns, celebrating him for his achievements as a high school basketball coach. Students and staff in many of our science classrooms also had the opportunity to safely view the solar eclipse and learn more about this scientific phenomena. And this is just a brief snapshot of the many amazing things that are happening across our schools and community on a daily basis. So I just want to take a moment to share a little bit of what is driving my focus as I am onboarding. And I want to thank the board for this opportunity to begin. It's kind of a weird timing. When you start on April 1st, everyone asks you, are you going to make some kind of prank? I can assure you I did not. There's already a number of different experiences that I've had over the past 9 days. And to be at my first board meeting again is just quite the honor. But I want to share with you that there's essentially 3 priority areas in the transition plan that I will be publishing and presenting to our board this evening. And so those 3 areas are highlighted here. We're going to align our superintendent and governing board relationship. We're going to work collaboratively to build leadership capacity and commit to continuous improvement. And we're going to continue to build off of our strategic plan efforts to foster community engagement and connections. Now, all that sounds really nice. And Terry, if you don't mind bringing up the PDF that accompanies this presentation, which is also in our board docs. So this is a lot of fine print. You can pick it up via board docs, and this will be published and shared with the community more broadly through various channels as we go into tomorrow. But essentially, under each of those priority areas, there are 3 areas of focus and deliverables that will accompany those areas. And that really will set the stage for how we make the most of this opportunity to listen, learn, and lead together. And one of the main things that I'm really looking forward to, especially in partnership and collaboration with our board, is an upcoming board retreat, as well as the formalization of goals and a performance evaluation that the board will hold me accountable to. And within that, there will be a lot of effort to take where we are in our strategic plan and address the multitude of areas and opportunities that exist there. And again, any opportunity that I have to come out and be with the community, be visible, accessible, so forth, that is one of the things that continues to feed me is relationship. So I look forward to building more of those relationships with you all and extending this opportunity that the board has entrusted with me. And with that, there is a preview of 3 upcoming Listen, Learn, and Lead sessions. So we're going to do this at Kellis High School on April 23rd, Liberty High School on April 30th, and then a live stream event for those that may have difficulty making it in person, Wednesday, May 1st. Again, this will be circulated throughout the community. We look forward to an opportunity where I can share a little bit more of my background and philosophy, and then begin to engage the community in a very focused and intentional listening tour. And with that, I will conclude my comments unless there's any questions that I can speak to.
I don't think we have any questions.
Thank you
So much. And officially, welcome to the PUSD family. We're so excited for all of you to get to know Dr. Summers better. We have had the benefit of being able to spend a lot of time with him, and there's no doubt in our minds that he is exactly who our district needs to lead us into the future. So thank you so much.
I'm honored. Thank you.
All right, moving on to section 7.1, consideration of administrative appointment, executive director for community education. And we will turn the time over to Mrs. Vesley.
Actually, apologies, President Proudfit.
Yes.
We have to address something that was removed from consent. While we had talked about tabling 5.14 and 3.1, we had just removed it from the consent agenda. We will now have to hold a vote to motion for a tabling of that action item.
Okay, excuse me, then I'm just refreshing so that updates on my end. Okay, we're going to go 6.1, items removed from consent. The Mental Health Services Professional Demonstration Grant. We are tabling that until...
I will make a motion to table the 6.1 Mental Health Service Professional Demonstration Grant.
I will second. We have a motion made by Mrs. Rooks, a second made by myself, and please take us through a voice vote.
Mr. Sandoval.
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen.
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks.
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing.
Yes.
And President Proudfit.
Yes. Motion passes with 5 yeses. Okay, now moving on to section 7.1, consideration of administrative appointment for the Executive Director of Community Education. Thank you, Ms. Vesley.
Good evening, President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and guests tonight. It is my sincere pleasure to bring forward a recommendation for the Executive Director of Community Education. Tonight, it is recommended that Mrs. Ashley Worrell be appointed to the position of Executive Director of Community Education. After going through multiple rounds of interviews with community members, parents, staff members, site and district administrators, we believe that Ms. Worrell will serve the district well, and we're excited to bring her name forth for consideration tonight. Ms. Worrell started her career in 2009, where she served as a Head Start teacher for the Deer Valley Unified School District. She went on to work as a Quality First coach with Southwest Human Development from 2014 to 2016. And since that time, Ms. Worrell has now served here in Peoria Unified School District as the Kids Zone Director. In October of this year, Ms. Worrell also took on supporting our schools and teachers by serving as both the Kids Zone Director and Acting Early Childhood Director. And if you remember, Dr. Pischke retired, and that is when Ms. Worrell offered and decided to help support the district in serving both that support that we needed for early childhood and Kids Zone. Ms. Worrell received a bachelor's degree from Northern Arizona University in elementary education with an emphasis in early childhood. She went on to earn her master's degree in educational leadership, and she also holds her principal certification through the Arizona Department of Education. Ms. Worrell is bringing her vast and varied experiences that are just what this new position requires. The interview committee also provided feedback that clearly show that Ms. Worrell has the experience and qualifications necessary to take on this new position within Peoria Unified School District. We look forward to your vote tonight as we bring her name forward for consideration.
Thank you. Is there any questions, Mrs. Ewing?
No, thank you. I'm excited about this. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
No questions at this point, thanks.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
No questions.
That being said, I motion to approve the administrative appointment for the position of Executive Director for Community Education effective July 1st, 2024.
I will second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Ewing. Please take us through a voice vote.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing,
Yes.
President Proudfit.
Yes. We have 5 yeses, and the motion passes. And
Excuse me, we're so excited for this new position and for Ashley Worrell to get started with us. And at this time, we do have Ashley with us, and I know she has some beautiful family members that are here joining her, so I would like to invite her to the podium. Ashley, come on up.
Hello, President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and community members. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I don't know that I can adequately describe how excited I am about this. This is my 8th year in our district, and every day it is such a privilege to be able to get up and serve the students and families and community, and especially our staff as well. Our preschool, our Kid Zone, our Family Resource Center, those programs are doing really important work every single day to make sure that all students have the resources and the opportunities and skills that they need to be successful in their educational journey. And so I'm so privileged to have been serving them this year. In the last year, I've been temporarily stepping in to help support preschool students and staff. It's been such a privilege, and I'm so honored to have this opportunity to lead this new department in the district. So I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
thank you.
I'm sorry, can I add one more? I forgot.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I also just wanted to thank my family that is here. I won't introduce absolutely everyone, but I do have my 2 daughters here. I have Piper.
Piper, you have to stand up
Piper,
and wave. I'll see Piper.
And then I also have Lily. Both of them are students at Desert Valley right now, and Lily is getting ready to go off to Ironwood. So they're both in our district as well.
Wonderful. Is there any board comments?
I'll start. Thank you so much. I am so happy that you continue to choose Peoria each and every time. I know how important it is working with kids before they start school. It puts them on a completely different trajectory as far as reading, math, and all of that. So I know how important this work is. I love that you have all of this great experience, Head Start, and that you've been with our district. So you really have a good vision, and I'm excited to hear more about what your vision is and how I can support you in your new role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's, for me, as I see throughout the district and your energy and just your commitment, to our youth in Peoria Unified is unparalleled without question. And I agree. I'll echo the statement around your diverse background and your experience and how that is going to bring new ideas, a different lens, and how we move forward as a district to maintain some innovation and ensuring that our students are relevant for that 21st century workforce. So yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Sorensen?
Congratulations. I'm really excited about the resources that this position and you will provide to our community. So congratulations. I'm really looking forward to seeing your work.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yeah, congratulations and to you and also your family, because I know that that takes a lot of work away from your family. So just, I'm looking forward to what direction you have this year for our students, and yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
I just want to say, anytime, I have a similar reaction to Ms. Vesley. Anytime you see someone who's been with the district 8 years, and for the district to be able to use that person on a greater level and take that value that's there for the benefit of our students, it makes me so excited. And like you said, continuing to choose PUSD, best decision ever. So yay, we're so glad to have you. Congratulations, and can't wait to see how we can support you in your new role. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to item 7.2, discussion and consideration to accept the 6-acre land donation adjacent to the Rancho Cabrillo school site and approval of the Maricopa County Planning and Development Department Code Compliance Division Compliance
Unknown
Agreement.
participant is now exiting.
Hey. Perfect. Okay, we're going to turn the time over to Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening, President Proudfit, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Summers, Cabinet, and community. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information related to the Rancho Cabrillo Elementary School site and a potential developer donation of 6 additional acres that are adjacent to the district's current school site. Elementary school sites are typically donated by developers and are usually 13 to 15 acres. The school sites are deed restricted to be an elementary school and are typically part of the master planning process for a community. The district currently has 3 elementary school parcels: the Meadows, Rancho Cabrillo, and Mystic. The district also expects that in the future, North Point, near Vistancia, will be formally donated to the district. I will now review the 6-acre donation opportunity that is related to the Rancho Cabrillo Elementary School site. Rancho Cabrillo is 15 acres, and that school site is located in the far northwest portion of the district and was initially identified as an elementary school site parcel for Peoria Unified in 2004. The Developers Assistance Agreement was signed by the district's governing board on August 10, 2004, and on March 9, 2017, the district received a request from the developer to entertain a land exchange. The land exchange involved a property the district currently owned in the same community that was essentially identical, the same size, the same format, etc. And so the district reviewed the request and evaluated the new property to ensure the functionality was the same, and the governing board did approve that exchange subsequently. So here we are today, and this year the district learned the developer would like to donate an additional 6-acre parcel to Peoria Unified. The 6-acre parcel, pending the donation, is adjacent to the district's 15 acres and would essentially create a 21-acre parcel if accepted. One thing to note that both the current 15-acre parcel that Peoria Unified owns and this adjacent 6-acre parcel has experienced some stockpiled soil dumping as part of the construction process in the community as homes are being built by the developers. And so we have been noticed by Maricopa County that this needs to be addressed. The developer was noticed as well to bring it back down to the original natural grade and remove the excess soils for future use. And so as part of the donation agreement, the developer has committed to clearing their parcel prior to the donation, clearing the stockpiled soil, and then restoring it back to the original level grade, as well as to provide a quote with their vendor to offer the same service to Peoria Unified. And at this point, the district is evaluating that option, but reserves the right to do our own procurement, to use our own vendor as well on the property that we own. Upon approval, both the parties would work together diligently in good faith to clear the donated parcel as well as the district's parcel to a level that's acceptable to Maricopa County. And of course, this is a benefit to the district because, again, we would have a very large parcel, much larger than the normal 15-acre size that the district typically receives. So once the donation is finalized, and again, the leveling is complete, there are some contingencies in the donation agreement, including the district's due diligence to do what's called an ALTA study, where you're looking at underground utilities and those types of structures, as well as an environmental survey and an appraisal. So there are contingencies in the donation agreement where the district could terminate moving forward if any of those open items that we're currently moving forward with do not come to fruition or to our satisfaction. And then, of course, the completion and submittal of the Maricopa County Planning and Development Department Code Compliance Division Agreement. And so with that, that completes my presentation. At this time, I am available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with Mrs. Ewing.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just really happy that the district is reaching out to about the debris that's on that property and having that taken care of and a partnership for that. So that I think that's just, I appreciate that that you guys have done that. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Proudfit, Mrs. Ewing, if I may add, once the donation is complete, Peoria Unified would fence the entire 21 acres to prevent any excess soil from being placed on the property in the future.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Sorry, Ms. Myers. Can you repeat the last thing you just said?
Thank you. President Proudfit, Mr. Sandoval, after the donation process is complete and Peoria Unified would officially own the additional 6 acres, we intend to put a fence, a chain link fence around the entire 21-acre parcel pending future elementary school construction.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And the last thing you just said is right. I mean, it's, as we take a look at the growth of our district and how the shift of that is moving more towards that northern sector of our district, that land is going to be critical to continue to serve our students and families in the way that they deserve. So thank you for that.
Dr. Sorensen?
Thank you for the information. No questions for me. Thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
Just a quick question on the ALTA study, environmental survey appraisal. I guess once you get through that process, will you be able to update the board on how that process all went, if everything went smoothly? Okay.
Thank you, President Proudfit. Mrs. Rooks, yes, administration can provide that information in a Friday report. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate being diligent in, crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's. Obviously, this is a very exciting donation that will hopefully be able to be a piece of addressing some of the challenges we have in the north part of our district. So thank you very much. That being said, I motion to approve and ratify the acceptance of the 6-acre land donation adjacent to the Rancho Cabrillo Elementary parcel and the related agreement terms and conditions of the donation. The action includes approving the Maricopa County Planning and Development Department Code Compliance Division Compliance Agreement as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you. Moving on to section 7.3, fiscal year 2025 budget process update, placement schedule increases for certified, classified, exempt, and administrative salary schedules and compensation next steps. Turning time back over to you.
Yes, thank you again. President Proudfit, members of the governing board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and community, thank you for the opportunity to provide information related to the fiscal year 2025 expenditure budget, staff compensation, and placement schedule recommendations for next year. Tonight's presentation is in addition to the information that was shared with the Governing Board at the April 4th, 2024 study session that took place last week. In addition to the budget process summary and related recommendations to date, salary placement schedule recommendations will be presented tonight, as well as additional compensation recommendations at the April 25th, 2024 Governing Board meeting. The Governing Board approved a budget goal on January 23, 2020 that included a phased approach, multi-year approach to defined compensation outcomes for teachers and staff in the district. Over the last several years, targeted budget priorities including compensation, instructional resources, and facility utilization have been a priority focus for Peoria Unified and are also part of the district's strategic plan. The budget and compensation work the district has completed in recent years is a phased approach over multiple years, focusing on compensation priorities, including beginning teacher salaries, classified employee compensation, and compression. Each year, ongoing priorities are addressed based on available funding. So this has been our format from a budget development and budget process perspective for many years. At the April 4th Governing Board study session, I did share an update on budget development and compensation recommendations, noting that the process takes several months, typically starts in the fall, November timeframe, October, November, and concludes in late April and early May. I also have previously shared that employee stakeholders provide input into the annual budget development and compensation process through a budget team work group with representation from employee groups throughout the district, including teacher associations. The budget team is not a committee of the Governing Board, but rather it's a work group of over 40 voting and non-voting employees who are brought together by administration to provide input on compensation increase recommendations, including stipends, positions, staffing, modifications, and benefit renewals each year. The budget team has met 7 times this year, or this season rather, budget season, regarding compensation priorities for next year, fiscal year 2025. And the meetings are facilitated by Mrs. Vesely and myself, and all final budget recommendations ultimately then go to administration and are subsequently brought forward to the Governing Board for consideration and approval. I also previously shared that ongoing budget priorities are a starting point for the budget team's work every year, including input from employee chats, communication from our stakeholders to administration, and research that we conduct related to other districts and other employers that compete for our employee base in the area of compensation and benefit packages. Initial budget team priorities areas this year included banded compression and long-term compression, especially in the areas of instructional and content coaches, as well as ongoing salary increases to the base, minimum wage impacts to the classified hourly placement schedule, and salary schedules. Salary compression has been a priority for many years for the budget team and administration, and it can exist between tenured employees and new hires, as well as staff who may have been hired after the hire date for raises. That is a requirement within district policy. And an example of that is a teacher who may have been hired midway through the 3 years that the 20 by 2020 was in place. And that individual may have been hired after January 31st, and therefore would not have been eligible for the next year's raise, where there were those significant increases from the state of Arizona for certified teachers. So that's an example of compression. Also, the cause for compression can include minimum wage increases, a tight labor market, and rising industry starting salaries, as well as varying pay practices over time that may have been a result of limited funding in the past. On March 12, 2024, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction stated the largest and most urgent problem facing the state is the dire shortage of teachers. Attracting and recruiting qualified teachers and staff is also an ongoing priority that is part of the recommendations that are being made tonight, including salary schedule adjustments, to be in alignment with market expectations and competition from other districts and employers. Retaining and recognizing long-term employees is also equally important. It's two sides of a coin. And consideration related to annual increases with a focus on increases to the base and a focus on addressing compression has been a priority for the last several years. Due to increased funding from the state of Arizona, the district has provided increases to base compensation for all of our employee groups in recent years, including 3 points in time where the increases were based on longevity or the years of service for those employees in the noted employee groups. In addition, compensation increases for fiscal year 2023 were brought forward in 2 parts due to additional funding that was received late in the legislative session and was reviewed and approved by ultimately the governing board and associated recommendations from the budget team, which resulted in a 7% raise for non-classified employees, as well as an additional $2 an hour increase for eligible classified employees. So you can see compensation progress to date detailed in this slide and those points in time where we've had increases based on longevity. Compensation increases that went into effect this year were also based on longevity. And in recent years, all employee groups have seen double-digit increases for eligible ongoing employees, and certified teacher compensation has increased over 41% to the base since 2017. And if you include some of the additional percentage add-ons for longevity for those eligible employees, it was actually higher. And so an example of last year's compensation increase is detailed on this slide. And as you can see, based on years of service, the raise was 3, 3.25, or 3.5%. A portion of eligible staff annual salary is funded from Classroom Site Fund. To address banded compression, last year the budget team and administration recommended an increase ranging from $1,250 to $2,000 from Classroom Site Fund funding for the portion of salaries for those employees who have worked in the district from 4 to 20 years to address banded compression. So last year when the budget team worked and administration was looking at data and we did analysis, we saw that in addition for some of our most tenured employees who had been with the district 20 plus years, 25 plus years, we had a middle range of employees based on some of those issues I mentioned just a few slides back, where you had a banding of compression, and those areas became a priority focus from Classroom Site Fund funds. In addition, there was an increase of 10% to the Classroom Site Fund portion of those employees' annual compensation. Now, again, Classroom Site Fund is not maintenance and operations. It's restricted in state statute for certified teachers, Function 1000, and in recent years had expanded eligibility to include Function 2100 related service providers, guidance counselors, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, psychologists, as an example. Function 2200 content and instruction coaches are not eligible for Classroom Site Fund and were not included in the banded compression recommendation last year. Through ongoing conversation last summer and as a starting point with our budget team meetings this year, that priority came back for that group of very important team members that they were not able to be included in the Classroom Site Fund work that we did last year. We do include coaches in the same format as far as additional increases to annual compensation, which is the equivalent of what someone who is eligible for Classroom Site Fund receives, as well as performance pay. But those individuals are funded out of M&O. So any increases or changes for that employee group would be from M&O and not Classroom Site Fund. As I mentioned on the past slide, last year, in addition to the banded compression increase, there was a 10% increase to the portion of Classroom Site Fund for those eligible employees' salaries. We also last year increased performance pay from $2,800 to $3,500. And we had a stipulation with that increase would only be for certified teachers or employees who are eligible for performance pay on or before the beginning of the most recent year where the additional employees were brought into classroom site fund eligibility. So basically, it was performance pay prior to fiscal year 2023. And so that increase, that additional $700, also was made available for our coaches, funded from M&O. Employee retention in conjunction with recognizing long-term employees is very important. As tenured employees transition from the district, newly hired staff take their place. And I presented this slide at the study session, and the budget team has also seen this data. In fiscal year 2024, 70% of the district's employees have been with Peoria Unified for less than 10 years, including 67% of classroom teachers and 78% of classified hourly staff. And I really focused on our classified staff, and the reason for that, not only other school districts serve as competition, but employers, restaurants, hotels, industry, manufacturing, the chip plant that's going to be opening in the near future. And so it's important to be mindful of the years of service as well as the competition that we have from outside the district. I will now review fiscal year 2025 projected funding as well as highlight some of the information that was shared last week at the study session. I've shared many times. Each year when we start our budget process, it's a balance of external and internal factors, fixed and variable costs, and
President Proudfoot, a
considerations.
point of order. If we could ask the member of the audience that is speaking on the phone to please hang up the phone. Thank you. We're good now.
So a number of factors are considered as part of budget development. This includes incremental funding increases that we may receive from the state, as well as other considerations. One main consideration is student enrollment, as well as funding levels that may be increased from the state of Arizona, minimum wage increase requirements, health care and benefit costs, utilities, contracted services, as well as fuel. Last year, when we were meeting about this time in 2023, and I provided information on budget projections, you'll note that we were projecting initially a 2% funding increase from the state of Arizona, which is the amount that's embedded in Prop 123 as part of the inflation restoration funding modification that went into place after Prop 123 passed in 2016. And so now, the base support level that districts receive that is part of the calculation in conjunction with enrollment, that's the amount of funding a district receives each year, is indexed for up to 2% inflation. Prior to that restoration, there was not an increase for inflation. It was flat for many, many years. And last year, we were initially projecting a decline of 325 students based on our demographic study and projections. We also had held back some of the additional funding that had come forward in the summer of 2022 when the legislature, at the end of the legislative session, added some additional funding, including increasing the M&O base to 2.92, so there was a one-time add-on. But we had held back some of the new funding in fiscal year 2023, so we brought forward $2.7 million of that holdback. And then, of course, the 0.92%. So we went from what would have been $4.4 million of new funding ultimately to 9.4. That, coupled with increases to classroom site fund, allowed us to do quite a bit in the area of compensation. And the entire presentation from last year is in board docs and is also recorded on live stream for replay. So if any of our team members or associates would like to watch in totality what was recommended and approved last year, they can certainly do that. However, this year it is a little bit of a different scenario because we're really not down 325 students as we projected, but our enrollment has decreased over 1,000 students. And in fact, this screen capture here is from the enrollment report that's in our board agenda tonight. So the funding formula that I've shared before is a mix of base support level and ADM, or average daily membership. When we lose students, we lose funding, and M&O funding is subject to current year funding. So actually, when we experienced this loss, it impacted this year's budget and future budget. So we've already adjusted this year, mid-year, and we'll finalize that adjustment in May. But we know now when we develop our budget for next year, we have to be mindful of this decrease coupled with any projected additional decreases. And so at this point, we've now identified the potential for a 350 to 500 student decrease next year as well, and have pulled the 350 figure into our pro forma, in addition to maintaining the 1,000 student decrease. So again, it's a formula, it's a mix of enrollment and base support level. Throughout the school finance community and with the professional associations that I'm involved with, all districts at this point are focused on the 2% increase. Now, we can't forecast what might happen toward the end of the legislative session, but we do know that a shortfall, which is being firmed up at this point, is being identified and present for this year and next. And so we're not expecting additional funding at the end of the session like we had last year and the year before, which I will say we were very appreciative of, and it's really allowed us to do a lot of wonderful things. But right now, we're just planning on the 2%. And because of that, we're now looking at a projection of 2.2 million, which is quite different from that last year. And so that's important information. We share this information with the budget team in real time. So as we meet, we'll update presentations as we have more data. But this $2.2 million amount is what we have been working with. And then we look at the cost of potential raises. You'll see from M&O, and of course there are other funding sources, grants, cash-controlled funds like Community Preschool Kids Zone, as an example, food service. But for M&O, the cost of a 1% raise is $1.8 million. 2% raise is 3.6. So through our budget development and identifying opportunities and efficiencies, you will see when I bring back recommendations on the 25th, I will have that full pro forma for you, and you'll see where we have identified every opportunity that we can to add to that 2.2%, or excuse me, $2.2 million increase to get to a 2% raise. I'll now just briefly highlight what we discussed at the retreat and to explain why this is a bit of a segmented process this year. Every year, we bring our benefits forward for renewal prior to final recommendations. And we have historically in recent years brought forward retention stipend recommendations early because there are timing considerations when contracts go out or when open enrollment is occurring. And so past approval and action from the board has taken place in December for the classified hourly placement schedule. Our retention stipends were approved in February, benefits on March 14th, CODA and LPN salary changes also in February. So tonight we're bringing placement schedules. And the reason why we're doing that out of sequence a little bit, and we did introduce the conversation at the study session, is because we are in the middle of hiring season. And these adjustments going into effect July 1st will help Peoria Unified be more competitive as we compete with other districts as well as other employers. I will now review the salary placement recommendations from the budget team and administration that were first introduced at the study session last week. I will start by reviewing recommendations related to certified placement schedules. Here I have screen captures of the three most recent certified placement schedules that are primarily certified classroom teachers and include certified and content and curriculum coaches. The starting salary does include classroom site fund and instructional improvement funding. So it's a mix of M&O, classroom site fund, instructional improvement was also known as gaming. It's funding that's received from gaming in the state of Arizona. And I can also share that when we had the $34,678 starting salary in 2020, we were significantly lower than other districts, significantly lower. And again, with increases in funding, we were able to increase that starting salary to $40,000 in fiscal year 2021. It was $40,114. And then again in fiscal year 2023 to $48,000. And that was a result of that additional funding that came through at the end of the 2022 legislative session. And what we did immediately is we brought back the budget team. That summer we met, we looked at the additional raises for staff. We also looked at the placement schedule. Also, I'll note that Peoria Unified has a 13% M&O override compared to a 15% override that is in place for all of our surrounding sister districts. And so that's a delta of about $4.5 million that we don't have in M&O funding that our sister districts have when it comes to compensation priorities and being competitive. So we are always trying to do more with less. Each time the district has adjusted certified salary schedules, it seems our surrounding sister districts have done the same thing. We move forward and all of a sudden surrounding districts do that. We saw that with transportation and bus driver compensation over the last few years. In addition, I'll note that the Auditor General's office in their most recent classroom dollar report that Peoria Unified's average teacher salary is $3,172 lower than the state average. Annual funding amounts for Classroom Site Fund have also increased in recent years, and that is why this funding source has been used to address banded compression and the expansion of compensation for eligible employee groups. The budget team considered two scenarios to increase the certified placement schedule from $48,000. We looked at $50,000 and $52,000, and the information on this slide is what was presented to the budget team. Salary schedules from other districts were also made available and reviewed, as well as employee years of service information, similar to the slide I presented earlier in the presentation. Compensation data, recruiting information was also discussed over 2 meetings, and the budget team ultimately did approve the $52,000 placement schedule to be aligned with other districts from an attracting and recruiting perspective. The budget team approval was not unanimous, as there were very distinct opinions from budget team members on this topic. And in fact, out of our membership, and we have voting and non-voting members, of the voting members, we had 26 voting members present at that particular meeting on March 11th, 2024, and the recommendation passed with 15 yay, 10 nay, and 1 abstention. So it was not unanimous, but a majority felt it was important to bring forward so Peoria Unified can compete, can attract, can recruit, and manage that shift in our demographics with the years of service as more and more of our employees are newer employees. So administration reviewed the proposal, and we are bringing that forward tonight for governing board approval. And now I'll briefly review classified and administrative recommendations as well. In December, the governing board previously approved a modification to our classified hourly. And there's a distinction between classified hourly and classified exempt. And simply, classified hourly are paid by the hour. They have an hourly rate, where exempt or salaried employees. So that's the definition of the two. And of course, we've shared information about the minimum wage increases year over year, going from $8.05 in 2017 to $14.35, and the banded compression that creates in the salary schedule as grades collapse. So in December, we made a recommendation and the board approved putting the spread back, and also then having that new $14.35 starting point for our classified hourly staff effective January 1st. So that work has been done. But what has occurred is, with our salaried classified exempt employees, their salary schedule has not been increased since 2022. So when we have increases for our classified hourly staff, and I will note that both classified hourly and classified exempt current employees over the last several years since 2017, their increases have been around 27%, and we've also then been able to add the $2 on top of that to their equivalent hourly rate. So there's been a lot of movement and focus on our current employees, but what happens is when they leave, if we don't update the placement schedule, it's very hard for us to compete. And so we're going to recommend a modification to the current classified exempt salary schedule. Examples of positions are technical positions. It might be IMT, HR, business services type positions, more on the business and operations side, typically in some instances, also managers and supervisors as well fall into that mix. And to be competitive, again, we're going to recommend that there's a 3% increase to the salary schedule. So here's the before current, here's the proposed after, and that 3% amount is basically the lowest raise we gave last year. So it's just recognizing 1 year of raises with the adjustment. And then similar with our administrative salary schedules, I will note that our admin schedule has not been updated since 2022 from a range perspective. And so subsequently, as we compete with other districts, we are at a deficit. And really, a lot of other districts are significantly higher than where we are. So we're recommending the 3% adjustment as well. I will now highlight 2 recommendations that we're going to be bringing forward on April 25th in the area of base percent increases and classroom site fund. Looks like I jumped ahead. The pending first recommendation is a 2% increase to the base for all employee groups for eligible employees. I again will review the pro forma, the budget pro forma that's supporting this recommendation that we will ask you to take official action on next time we meet. On April 25th, the budget team and administration will also recommend the continuation of the optional certified teacher workday paid from classroom site fund with the addition of OTs, occupational therapists, physical therapists, nurses, behavior interventionists, BCBAs, and LPNs. Those were limited practicing nurses. So in the related service support area to be added to the day. So that was a request that was made from some of our team members and it was approved. Administration will also recommend a 10% increase to the classroom site fund portion for eligible exempt employee salaries. So that's going to be teachers, function 1000, and exempt positions, function 2100, and other employees who have received the equivalent of classroom site fund funding, so that's the instructional and content coaches, will receive the same increase, but it will be paid from M&O. The respective cost for the optional workday is projected to be $668,000, and the cost for the 10% increase is $3.3 million from classroom site fund and $75,000 from M&O. This next slide highlights an example elementary teacher and 2 high school teachers showing the portion of compensation from M&O, classroom site fund, instructional improvement, also known as gaming. Those are those main funding categories that are in the placement schedule. Now, of course, staff can also work the optional workday, earn the retention stipend, and earn performance pay. But I've broken that out separately, just showing the top portion. That's what is attributable to what we would advertise in a placement schedule. And with the 2% increase to the base and a 10% increase to the classroom site fund portion of that employee's salary, you'll see the projected increase on the right. So you'll see the fiscal year 2024 salary on the left and the 25 salary on the right. And the average with these 3 examples, the increase would be $1,857. So I'm helping translate what a 2% raise and a 10% increase to classroom site fund looks like. And before I conclude the presentation, I'd like to look to Mrs. Vesley and ask, would you like to add anything to the comments I've made?
Thank you, Ms. Myers. President Proudfit, members of the board. We've done extensive work, and I'm very proud of the work that our budget team has done. There are still priorities that we know are coming up, and they will remain to be top priorities. But we really looked at the data We continue to look at how do we recruit, but we also know that we have to continue to retain. So I think in our presentation tonight, we are showing very good data of the deep and difficult discussions that we have each time we meet. We want to be competitive with our neighboring districts. And as Ms. Myers mentioned, we look from an HR perspective. I look to our neighboring districts that are of similar size across the valley. We get data every year, and we look to make sure that we are trying to be competitive in all areas: classified, certified, related service providers, and administrative. So while I wish we could bring more for our staff, you saw earlier the amount of money that is drastically reduced from last year to this year, and the budget team has done a tremendous job in looking at the priorities. We know that there's work to be done, and those priorities will stay at the top of our list as we move into next year as well. So, Ms. Myers, I do want to thank you. You have put a tremendous amount of work into this budget team process since November to now, and we're nearing the final stages. I just want to thank you for your leadership and your team for bringing solid data for our 40-plus team members to review every week.
Thank you, Mrs. Vesley. And I would also like to acknowledge the volunteer time that our budget team members have committed to this process. Our meetings have been a mix of virtual and in person, and there has been thoughtful conversation and a lot of honest comments and feedback, and all of that is so very important. I will say, and I'll highlight this again next meeting, if there's additional funding or opportunities to add to this package, we will do that. And I will say, out of the gate, it was our intention, if our enrollment had not changed, to be able to address our coaches and other priority groups that have been part of the process and shared so much important information. And so with that, tonight, the governing board certainly can consider a motion to increase the certified initial placement schedule from $48,000 to $52,000 starting amount, and the 3% increases to the classified exempt salary placement schedule and administrative salary placement schedules as presented for newly hired employees effective July 1st, 2024. In addition, current employees who are under the lowest beginning salary placement amount after the increase would be brought up to that new amount for next year. And so with that, that does conclude the presentation, and Mrs. Vesley and I are both available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Start with Mrs. Ewing. We do. I was going to do them after. Do you want to do that first? Okay. We do have one public comment tied to this item. Christina Tooby.
Hello, good evening, President Proudfit, governing board members, and a warm welcome to Dr. Summers. I appreciated meeting with you out there. I would like to use my time at the microphone to speak on board agenda item 7.3 as an experienced Peoria Unified Classroom teacher. I am disappointed that my feedback during public comment on May 11th was not taken into consideration when formulating compensation for the dedicated certified teachers of the district. PUSD is willing to pay new teachers who have yet to prove their worth and value to the district than those who have been devoted, dedicated, and loyal teachers. The new proposed pay scale to recruit new teachers provides those new to Peoria with an upwards of $4,000 more than people who have continued to provide for our children. The latest pay scale, coupled with the lack of increase for current teachers, leaves educators like me feeling undervalued, unrecognized, and questioning why we stay loyal to the district that does not provide incentives to stay. PUSD has demonstrated that they would rather pay someone with no experience more than those who have proven to be effective for our children. When I have asked how I can match the new teacher salary, the guidance that I have been given was that I would need to quit and then be rehired 366 days later to be eligible for the new teacher pay. Why are you driving away your teacher force? You are focused on recruitment, but what about the retention of staff? This is not a complaint session, but rather a warning that you will lose teachers if you continue to show no loyalty or support for those who have been there for our children. For me, this is a $4,000 difference. You are asking me to support new teachers, train them, mentor them, and yet accept financially less when I think about providing for my own family. I struggle to accept how I can do the same job as someone else, fresh out of college, with no experience, and accept less. I am not able to emotionally process the math that compounded the loss for my family year over year. I question the logic when accounting for the pay scale. How do you make sense of asking us to continue
I'm
to
sorry,
take...
that's
sorry.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ewing?
First off, thank you, Mrs. Myers, for that in-depth, comprehensive presentation that you did. I know that originally it was much shorter, but a lot of the board members had many, many questions, and you added a lot more detail into this because we were getting so many questions from staff and community, similar remarks as Ms. Tooby here. First thing I really appreciate about this budget process is that we choose to bring in lots of voices at the tables, because when we have limited resources, it also means sometimes we have to make tough decisions financially, just like any other household would have to do with their own finances. So I appreciate that we have so many people at the table to help make a decision that is in the best interest of all, weighing both recruitment and retention. So, and that there are many factors that lead into individuals feeling like when it comes to their tenure and their recruitment, that their retention, that create complications outside of our control. But one of the questions I'd like to ask is pay is part of our compensation for employees. So if somebody makes the argument that if they were to leave and come back, or to leave and then get rehired, that they could immediately make more money. But I'm curious how that would affect the other compensation package, it's not the compensation, but the benefits that they have. Because I know that if somebody's been with our district for a long time, we have other benefits that might be affected in that. So,
thank you, President Proudfit. Mrs. Ewing, I'll provide an initial response, but I'll also look to Mrs. Vesely as well. And so if an employee had been with the district for a number of years, we have shared, and through our analysis and presentations to the board, Peoria Unified actually has a very robust benefits package. And in fact, when we benchmark off of other districts, we see that we have a very strong benefits package. So that is also part of compensation. In regard to the $52,000, after an employee would receive the 2% raise, if they were below that new starting point, they would be brought up. If an employee had been with us for a number of years, and the three scenarios I had on the slide had varying lengths of tenure. If you look back, and actually I can go to that example here. We have 2019, 2013, and 2001. So 3 examples. Depending on the length of time an employee has been with the district, they've received raises, and we have that detail on the slide. And I will highlight For last year, we did have the add-on for the classroom site fund for the banded compression concern as well. And so if an employee was within the date ranges of 4 to 20 years, they got that additional compensation as well. So compression, long-term employees are a priority. We could have done so much more if our enrollment had not changed. And that's just the fact that we're dealing with. And so, Mrs. Vesely, would you like to add on if an employee were to leave, or also years of service that we provide? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. President Profit, members of the board. There is board policy also that is a benefit for employees that stay with the district for, I believe it's 10 years or more, and you save your discretionary days. You are paid out. There's a formula in board policy that we will pay you out per the policy for those discretionary days. And all employees earn discretionary days that can be used for sick or for personal days. Employees that are 12-month employees that earn vacation time, should you leave the district, another benefit is that you are paid out your vacation days. So those are some added benefits that we also have to think about. The first thing I would like to say is I don't want any teacher to leave this district or to say that if I leave for the district and I'm gone for a year that I'm going to bring you back on the new salary schedule. I'm not sure. I would love to have deeper conversations about that. I don't want to lose any teachers. That's why we look at bringing those priorities back. We also have to remember as a district, we have a 13% override where districts around us have a 15% override, and therefore they have additional monies to work towards banded compression and or compensation. And I believe Ms. Myers, when we had our last override, we lost the 15%. I might look back to you by 133 votes. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mrs. Vesely. We tried to pass a 15% override in 2019, and it failed by 133 votes.
So those are some additional benefits, as well as our wonderful benefits package that we offer to our employees. So we also have to look at our total compensation. And every year by state law, we do give a total compensation statement to every employee that has your salary. It has what we pay out for benefits. It has discretionary days. It has everything that they have earned, extra sections, stipends, that gives that full amount. And we will be sending that out again in August, July or August. We've done that for the last 2 years. So when you look at a total compensation, that not only includes your salary, we'll look at all of those areas. And that's a very interesting document to look at as we send those out yearly. Thank you.
Thank you for all of that information. I really appreciate it. And I know in addition to compensation, certainly showing the professional development we can offer in our district and just the different ways that without the use of compensation, the way that we can show value to all of our employees is something that I know we work on every day, and we work towards that. So I don't have any other further questions. I really appreciate all the work that you've done and all the work that the budget team has done and that the difficult conversations that they've had. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
Mrs. Myers, thank you. A lot of information as always. So a couple things for me, I've always talked about ensuring that we provide world-class compensation models to our associates and we prioritize people. I've complimented the district about moving in that direction. I think we're on that trajectory, but where I have a question is, I believe it was a study session, we talked about the vote tied to moving our new teacher salaries from 48 to 52, and that being, I think it was 15 yeas and 10 nays in that vote, which to me reflects, you even stated it wasn't unanimous. Yes, it was majority, but there was still a good number, right, of individuals on that budget committee that felt that that may not be the right move for the district. So my question is this, I mean, when we take a look at, I know, again, our budgets are finite. I know that, from an ADM perspective, which drives revenue into the district, we weren't expecting that additional number to be down that additional amount of students, right, going into the subsequent academic year. But my challenge is if a good number of those individuals felt like, well, here's my statement. Are we potentially overcorrecting, right? I know we need to attract new teachers, and that means being competitive from a salary perspective. But I don't disagree from the public commenter around making sure that we value, our associates who have been with us for many years, who are invaluable, to those incoming teachers, right, from a mentorship perspective. So as we took a look at, those resources, did we look at compression and those new teacher salaries, meaning could we have worked more on compression, still bumped up the new teacher salaries, I'm making this up, a couple thousand, so made it 50 versus 52, and impacted compression in a bigger way in this budget conversation, right? So I guess that's my comment. I know this is something that we need to move forward from a timing perspective, but my challenge is, and my concern is making sure that our associates that are at the table are not just listened to, but are feeling heard, right, when they bring up these concerns. And one of the things I always continue to say is making sure that the district provides, yes, the world-class compensation model, but an environment that is inspiring, that is supportive. And that's how we build trusting teams, in a very, very large district of 4,000 associates. So I'm just, I'm concerned about the vote, right, that took place around moving new teacher salaries to 52 versus maybe another number that might have impacted compression in a bigger way. I think that's an opportunity for us for sure. It feels that way based on the commentary and some of the other emails that I know most of us up here has received. I think that is an opportunity for us for sure, as we get into subsequent budget years.
President Proudfit, Mr. Sandoval, members of the board, those were the conversations and the evaluation of resources compared to need. And how do we look at eligible funding sources, including Classroom Site Fund, which has a net position that allows us to do some of these intentional things like the banded compression work last year and the raise we were able to provide last year from M&O because our funding level was higher. But the challenge, as an example, if you address one group for compression a second time from Classroom Site Fund, you're still not supporting the coaching group unless you take it from M&O. So it's this balancing act, and with the numbers that we're working with right now, the recommendation was the 2%, and if you would phase it, initially it was 1% for quite some time, and if you try to phase that 1%, 1.5%, 2%, it's such a small differential, it doesn't move the needle. You would need to have a higher percentage to see some true distinct differences. And so there was conversation. It was a majority vote. Many voices came to the table, and they were all correct statements and concerns from the perspective of that particular employee. But the one concern as we monitor the future, knowing that our enrollment's continuing to decline, our applied economics report has shown us that in the next few years we will continue to decline. So that means a funding decrease. 1,000 students is $5 million. A 1% raise is 1.8, just to put it in perspective. Also the ability to compete when there's a teacher shortage and we have limited potential candidates. How can we compete to ensure we're getting the best and the brightest to be that next generation? It's a very difficult conversation while honoring those employees who had long-term pay freezes as well. The longer tenured employees, their voice too, those from 2008 when the Great Recession hit and there were years of pay freezes. So there are a number of banded concerns and considerations, and administration, I know Mrs. Vesley and I have had very lengthy conversations, our administrative team as well. What we're bringing forward is what was the best mix at this point in time, with the majority weighing in on that increase, acknowledging that it was not unanimous.
And thank you for that. And again, like I said, I agree from a competitive perspective, but Ms. Ewing brought up, our, overall compensation model, and Ms. Vesley kind of spoke to that as well. I mean, let's tout that, right, in addition to moving the needle a little bit from a new teacher perspective, but also letting them know that while they're here, the voices are being heard, and, we will continue to care for them deeply and value them and respect them as they sit in the seat here in Peoria Unified. Thank you.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to the committee members and the hard work. Generally, I default to the committee decision, predicting that our committee is a representation of our community and it's very inclusive to people who want to be a part of the committee. Assuming those two things are true, I'm always going to appreciate the hard work, because I know it's easy to not be part of the process and come in and judge and evaluate, which is why we're here. And compression is a monster. But I think I've heard you say that as a priority. I don't know how many times that I've sat up here. So it's certainly on the forefront of your mind who's leading that committee work. So I would appreciate the group bringing this and all the work that they put into it. So thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
So I just had a quick question, Ms. Myers, before I get into some comments on this item. If a teacher does leave and comes back after a year or whatnot, is there costs that are associated with that turnover and new hiring process?
Mrs. Proudfit, Mrs. Rooks, members of the board, there is always cost to turnover. There's also a significant cost to vacancies. If you fill a vacant position with a contracted employee, that's going to have a higher cost than if you had an employee in the position, as well as the impact on employees when there's a vacancy, where you have many people trying to fill that need. So yes, there's a cost to turnover, but there's also a cost to not being properly staffed, and it's a very difficult balance.
Okay, well, thank you for answering that. I have been talked to a lot from different teachers in the district that have been here for so many years, and I have, heard through the grapevine that they're leaving to go elsewhere where they can get, unfortunately, better pay. And for me, I feel like the voices are not being heard. I can't, and for me, just voting with this tonight, not having the extra piece of, I know you said you're going to present it at the April 25th board meeting, but I feel like when we're making a big decision like this, we should have all the pieces at the same board meeting so that we can make those decisions instead of doing it tonight and then waiting until the 25th. That to me doesn't show that we're listening to those veteran teachers. That seems like they're kind of pushed forward, we're focusing on this, and to me, I just can't make that type of a decision as a board member with responsibility on all of these items. I have to have all the information at the same time when we're making these big decisions. And I am very concerned when I'm hearing that a teacher that's been in our district for many years with the masters in the 30, they're making, $51,000 in salary, but a new hire can make more than them. I've had, I don't understand this concept of paying new teachers that are going to need that mentorship. They're going to need that support. Who are they going to look to? They're going to look to the teachers that we've had here for 20 plus years. And I just don't, that doesn't make me feel good that we're saying, oh, by the way, they're going to get paid more than you. And that just, to me, I don't feel like that is morally right. I know that you're trying to address and retaining people and bringing them here, but if we bring in those new hires and all of our veteran teachers leave because of the pay, who's going to be there to also help and support those new teachers in the classroom? Because we won't have those amazing veteran teachers. And just for perspective of, again, I know you said it was 15 out of 26. That doesn't sit well either. That's kind of questionable to me from the committee. Not that I'm saying that all that hard work, but it just, we have to have all the pieces. This notion of, oh, let's vote on this first, the 3% increase raise for these positions, but our veteran teachers that have been here for so long, we're going to vote at the next meeting. I just don't feel comfortable with that.
So, Mrs. Proudfit, President Proudfit, Mrs. Rooks, members of the board, if I may clarify, with the salary schedule adjustments for our administrative and classified exempt, it's a 3% adjustment to the placement schedule. So it's not a raise per se, it's an adjustment. It's not a raise to current employees or different employee groups. It's simply recognizing the lowest raise, because we had 3 levels last year, 3%, 3.25%, 3.5%, not including the raise the year before that, because the schedules had not been adjusted since 2022, trying to make us a little more competitive, because what we have seen with employees who've been with us at least 10 years, the graphic I showed with the 2017 forward, those employees have had raises at the levels presented. So that group has had raises every year, including differentiated raises based on longevity. And it is a difficult conversation. I can say there's most likely one more budget team meeting, and the majority of the action has taken place to honor the request to highlight a recommendation before an actual vote. That's why we're highlighting the 2%, as well as classroom site fund. The salary schedule adjustments were highlighted at the study session as well. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
I have one more follow-up question. Sorry, President Proudfit. I guess I just want to keep it as simple as possible with this question. Then, based off of this tonight, when we hire new teachers coming into our district, are they going to be making more than our veteran teachers that we've had in this district?
Not at the initial lowest level. Mrs. Vesely, would you like to add to that?
Thank you, President Proudfit. Members of the board, Mrs. Rooks, we have to also remember that on the initial salary placement schedule, a brand new teacher coming out with a bachelor's degree would receive $52,000. We do have candidates and applicants that are applying from other districts that also have experience. Coming into Peoria, we would place them based off of their highest educational level and years of experience, up to 7 years per board policy, and up to 10 years for hard-to-fill positions. Those are math positions, science positions, special education positions, and junior high positions. Those are all considered hard to fill. So while we might say someone new to Peoria might be making more, they are also experienced teachers, but new to Peoria.
President Proudfit, go ahead.
First, just let me say thank you for your public comment. As a parent, I have just the utmost respect for the educators in our district and for the absolutely vital work they do, not just for our community, but on a personal note for my family, for my children. I wish that we had a magic wand that we could wave and to help every teacher. This is what was presented And first of all, thank you to the Budget Committee. It's another volunteer committee, and you have no idea how comprehensive and how much time community members and different stakeholder groups come together. It's a very large committee to work on these solutions, and we are literally asking them to solve an almost impossible problem. As we saw the decrease in ADM, which I'm just going to say in case anyone doesn't know what that means, when we have students leave the district, we have less money. And that number was a lot higher than was projected. So that, in my mind, gives us a board directive to say, hey, well, this is a problem that we need to work together to solve so that we are not put in this position again. Obviously, there is two parts to this problem, and that is teacher retention and teacher recruitment. Tonight really only solves one of those problems. Being able to be competitive is incredibly important. I agree with Mrs. Rooks, and it's hard to not have this be one comprehensive vote, and yet I understand the urgency to move forward in a direction with this so that we are competitive. If we're going for competitive salary, then we need to be ready to hire the people based on that competitive salary. We have to move forward in a timely fashion to make sure that what we're doing is actually effective in recruiting the teachers that we so desperately need. I appreciate that you brought up that we are in a teacher shortage. The level of competition out there is so much higher than it ever has been. I don't have any questions. I've literally been poring over this since our study session, so I don't have any questions. I just wanted to express my, I guess, directive to say that as a community, as a district, we have to do better on our teacher compensation. I appreciate this step forward. I also appreciate that we're a financially conservative district. That is a really great thing. But we need to work to do better for all the teachers. I don't ever want a teacher to come into a board meeting and say that they don't feel heard or valued. That breaks my heart. I'm so sorry that you are feeling that way right now. And know that I don't take that lightly. I don't think anyone up here takes that lightly. And as we move forward with the very limited resources, just know that that fiscal responsibility that Ms. Myers, you are always showing us in a very comprehensive way, that as a board member, I don't take that lightly with looking at the ADM issue that we're having and some of the other factors that play into this. It feels like we have our work cut out for us, which is a good thing because we know where we can come together as a community to ensure that our schools have the funding they need. So thank you. That being said,
President Proudfit,
yes.
I would actually like to motion to table this agenda item to the next board meeting, April 25th, so that we have all of the information presented in front of us of the salaries of not just these ones tonight, but also our veteran teachers. And I know I'll need a second.
If I may, what are the implications of waiting the 2 weeks?
Thank you, President Proudfit. Members of the governing board, I'll defer to Mrs. Vesely. Thank you.
Thank you, President Profit, Mrs. Brooks, members of the board. We are currently every day getting recommendations from every school, 43 schools, trying to fill our classified positions, our certified positions. Today, we looked at some data. We've hired about 115 teachers, which is wonderful. And we still have probably about 140 positions that we need to fill. I don't have the exact number on our support staff because that changes a little bit, quite a bit more frequently than our certified staff. We have voluntarily transferred about 35 individuals. So we have made recommendations. We have made calls on at least 110. We've lost about 33 recommendations that have come through where we've made an offer and the offer was declined, whether it's going to another district for whatever the reason is. So we could have had approximately 140 people that would have accepted, possibly. So for human resources, we have to go back and make all of those calls back to the individuals to say we have a change in our salary schedule, and we are more than happy to do that. That is what we're here for. But it will be work from my team to make those calls so that they understand what their incoming salary is going to be. If I might make a request, if we could think about, and I think what I'm hearing, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, there's more concern about the certified salary schedule. And if you would like to provide directives to Ms. Myers and myself that we can take back to the budget team, we would be happy to do that. If I could maybe make a recommendation, if you as a board are comfortable moving forward with the administrative salary schedule as well as the classified salary schedule that we presented tonight, and then provide directives to us, we are more than happy to go back to our team. They are ready and willing. We will have as many meetings as we need to with them, and we are happy to continue to support in whatever way that we can.
Ms. Myers, can you pull up the slide? You had a slide that was what is being presented at the April 20, at the next meeting.
Thank you. President Proudfit, members of the governing board, we will be bringing forward on April 25th the recommendation for a 2% increase to the base for all employee groups funded from M&O or the respective grants that are related to those positions or cash-controlled funds. In addition, there will be a 10% increase to the portion of compensation eligible employees for Classroom Site Fund will receive. So that broken out portion that I've detailed on this slide, what we have in parentheses is Fund 11 and 12, that would be the 10%. So 2% to the base, 10% to the equivalent of Classroom Site Fund, be it from Classroom Site Fund or those coaching positions that receive the equivalent from M&O. Those are the two recommendations, as well as the continuation of the optional day. That includes the expanded employee group from an eligibility perspective. That's what we were planning to bring at our next meeting. That action was the last action taken from our budget team. The primary action was the 2%. But administration, again, from a hiring and recruiting perspective, felt it was important to bring the opportunity for movement forward tonight to allow our HR team to have those additional 2 weeks. But I would echo Mrs. Vesley's request if there is concern or wish to delay, if the administrative and classified exempt schedules could be actioned, we could certainly bring back the certified placement schedule with the rest of the recommendations on the 25th, if you're in agreement, Mrs. Vesley.
Can I, Mrs. Proudfit, President Proudfit, may I ask a question? Yeah. From what I was understanding from what you're saying from a recruitment perspective, that if we delay this, we risk possibly recruiting some additional employees, which, if that's the case, could put us at risk of when we had big teacher shortages. I remember when we had to add the number of students in the classroom and so forth, and that's really, really difficult, and it's not a great option. So I don't know if that could potentially put us in that a similar position.
Thank you, President Proudfit, Mrs. Ewing, members of the board. It could put us in that position. We do have those additional stipends that we'll be bringing forth after the board approves our compensation recommendations. We typically bring that the next meeting. We do have the extra student stipend that you have previously approved, as well as extra section stipends to the elementary level that we previously approved to help support those sites where we may not be able to hire a teacher. So we would plan to bring those back as an option as well.
Sorry, President Proudfit, Ms. Ewing, sorry. Another question popped in my head. The 2% that you're looking at here, is that going to be added to the base salary so that we raise people to the base start? So like our veterans teachers would be that 2% to get to that base, I guess. I don't know if that's making sense.
Thank you, President Proudfit, Mrs. Rooks, members of the governing board. The examples that I have on this slide speak to that question. You'll note, and we'll look at the first example position, sixth grade teacher. When we say base, we say M&O or a grant. We'll say that this is an M&O funded teacher, $52,888.92, hired in 2019. The 2% would apply to that first amount. After the 2%, it would be $53,946.70. The 10% increase is for the classroom site fund components, the $2,459 and the $4,294. If we go down to my last example on the slide, a high school teacher hired in 2001, base salary $64,786.51. Add the 2%, it's $66,082.24. And then the breakout of classroom site fund, funds 11 and 13, those would increase by 10%, moving from 2,084 to 2,293, 4,169 to 4,586. And then the gaming fund we have at the same amount. So that senior tenured teacher would move from $71,390 to $73,311.
Thank you.
Do we have any motions? Do we have a second for Mrs. Rooks? Are there any other motions?
Ms. Myers, Ms. Vesely, and when we talk about student success and the recruitment attraction, really the attraction side of this proposed line item, if we were to move forward and approve the classified and administrative placement schedules, but pause on certified, I think the question was asked, but can you talk about the impact of doing so, the impact that may have, on our kids, our students, as we start the subsequent year, right? I mean, you've experienced a number of individuals who we brought in who have declined for various reasons, right? One being just going to another district, others being salary. I'm assuming, I don't know all the reasons why. So, these decisions that are made by the district and that are brought forth to the governing board, I do appreciate as you have those discussions that they are intentional and centered around student success and our associates and their success and well-being and feeling valued and respected, right? So there is a level of feeling right now that I talked about earlier, so I'm not going to be repetitive there, but I just want to understand, if we approve administrative classified today, what situation does that put you in from an HR perspective, from a district perspective? If we pause that for a couple of weeks, go ahead.
Thank you. President Proudfit, Mr. Sandoval, members of the board, we are going to continue every day to get our recommendations, and we're going to continue to make those calls in a timely fashion. We had conversations this morning about being kind, being compassionate, being efficient in our work with my department, and we're going to continue to make those calls based off the current salary schedule in which we have. So if we think about last year, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. We got contracts out earlier this year, probably about 3 weeks earlier. We started getting the calls out about 3 weeks earlier. We opened up the voluntary transfer process about 3 weeks earlier. And so we're in that trajectory in continuing to make those calls. And we will do our work, and we will do it well. And we will also come back if we need to, and we will remake those calls when the board is ready and prepared to help us make that decision. So from a hiring perspective, we're going to do the best that we can with the salary schedule that we have. Again, I'd like to make the recommendation, or just for you to think about, sorry, it's not my recommendation, but for you to think about. We are happy to hear recommendations from you, the board, that we can take back to the budget team. If you are comfortable moving forward with the other two salary schedules, we could make, you could make a recommendation. Give us some thoughts to take back to the budget team that we can digest. My team will work with just about anything, and we're going to continue to do the great work and continue to promote Peoria Unified with our great schools, our great administrators, and our great community that is upholding us to that job.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think, you know, as we take a look at the budget, right, it is what it is, right? So we know that. So really, I believe, you know, the future discussions that'll be had between now and a couple of weeks would, you know, I'm just throwing this out there, potentially be in and around how we repurpose those dollars and impact both retention and attraction in a way that still moves us closer to that competitiveness from ANU teacher salary perspective, while valuing, ensuring that our experienced associates, you know, continue to feel valued and respected in their roles.
Thank you. President Proudfit, Mr. Sandoval, members of the board, just to highlight that there really isn't an option to repurpose or reclassify. What would happen is if we don't move forward with the $52,000, if it's a lower amount, it still would come from Classroom Site Fund. That is the one area where we have some capacity to implement the movement. We don't have it in M&O, and that funding source is restricted to a finite population of employees. So the decision is it 52 as recommended, or is the direction perhaps from the governing board to ask for another option to consider when we bring back the rest of the recommendations on the 25th. But I will say, in agreement with Mrs. Vesely, if the other two schedules could have action, the administrative and the classified exempt, that helps with those priority areas as well, especially the classified exempt. There's very robust competition for our classified employees.
Gotcha. With President Proudfit, sorry, with that said, you know, I would like to motion that we approve 7.3 minus the certified initial placement schedule.
I will second. We have a motion made by Mr. Sandoval and a second made from myself to approve the increases for classified exempt salary schedule and administrative salary placement schedules minus the certified initial placement schedule as presented newly hired employees effective July 1st.
Apologies, online voting had a bit of a bug there. If you don't mind just resubmitting your votes for me.
So President Proudfit, I don't know that this is what the motion.
I don't see anything on mine.
Yeah, it reads budget process update, placement schedule. Oh, just went away. It's still including certified.
Have you refreshed the page for me?
Okay.
Mine still says certified.
So does, yeah, so does mine.
I'm going to try that one more time.
Still says certified.
The motion is showing properly on my end, so it should update on board docs, but can we just run this through a voice vote?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the motion on the screen on the right is correct, but for
Yes.
some reason, the small box is off.
Oh, strange. I'll just run us through a voice vote, but the motion should be correct.
Okay.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
No.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing?
No.
And President Proudfit?
Yes. Motion passes with 3 yeses. Thank you. Moving on to 7.4. Approval of rehire list for the issuance letters of reasonable assurance for classified employees for the 2024-2025 school year. Turn the time over to Ms. Vesley.
Thank you, President Proudfit, members of the board, Dr. Summers, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, this item is allowing you the opportunity to approve our LORAs, or letters of reasonable assurance, for our classified exempt and classified hourly staff members. These LORAs, upon approval tonight, will go live tomorrow electronically, and they will be out for our employees to electronically accept their letter of reasonable assurance. And the due date would be April 26th, so they have about 2 weeks to accept their letter of reasonable assurance. Attached to this agenda item, you will see a list of both our classified hourly and our classified exempt employees. So tonight, we look forward to you approving the rehire list of our classified employees for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you. Any questions, Mrs. Ewing?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, ma'am.
Mrs. Rooks?
No questions, thank you.
I don't have any questions either. We're just going to wait 1 second until Mr. Sorensen or Mr. Sandoval comes back.
President Proudfit, members of the board, do we need to take a quick break, or would you like to wait?
Let's just give him 30 more seconds. He was
Okay.
going to be very quick. Maybe we should clap when he comes back in. Welcome back. I will motion to approve the rehire list and authorize the issuance of letters of reasonable assurance for the 2024-2025 school year.
I will second.
Motion made by myself and a second made by Mrs. Rooks. Motion passes with 5 yeas. We're going to move right on to Section 8. We don't have any discussion items, so moving on to Section 9, public comment. I did quickly want to mention, if you had a public comment tied to 514, these will be saved, and when that comes back, these will go right into the pile for when that comes back on the agenda. Also, we have a lot of public comments tonight. I want to be able to make it through all of these, which means we're going to be extending beyond the 30 minutes, if that's okay with everyone. Yes? Okay. We have quite a few. I just want to say before we start public comment, we have a very high standard in our district and high expectations for our students and how they resolve conflict and what is appropriate and what is not. And I would just implore you as board president to please keep that in mind as we have these tough, hard conversations, recognizing and respecting that everyone in this room has different life experiences, is coming from different places, and can we please maintain order so that everyone can be heard? That is the point of public comment. I just wanted to say also that we have to refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is appropriate to utilize a public hearing to public comment or any other agenda items. It's not appropriate for the purpose of making public speeches, or political speeches, excuse me. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease upon request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting under the direction of the board president. That being said, let's get started. Our first public comment comes from Seek Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Seek Smith. I'm the founder and president of Mom Army. We are a survivor-led organization protecting children and their innocence. I would like to address, well, first of all, thank you for addressing the recent incident of the teachers that were arrested. And I want to address this from a broad perspective. There are many stories out there across the country of teachers being arrested for sexually abusing students and children. We have a pandemic regarding sexual abuse in our school districts. Recently, it has been exposed that in Redlands Unified School District, $45.5 million has been paid out to settle 16 lawsuits because the district was covering sexual abuse and moving teachers around rather than holding people accountable. I'm addressing this because in Buckeye, 3 female teachers were recently indicted and arrested. And I can go on and on. Houston, Connecticut, we have teachers all over the country. What we need to understand that predators and pedophiles go where they can have access to children. And we have to do better to safeguard children and protect them from predators. I implore this district to please stay on top of this investigation. Our organization will be keeping a close eye and would like updates on how this is going to be handled. So I just wanted to address that, and I want the country to understand what we are actually facing when it comes to sexual abuse of children in institutions like public school that is causing a lot of parents to homeschool their children. And until we get to a place where we're serious about protecting children, you'll continue to lose students to homeschool parents. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we have to hold applause. Our next public comment comes from Ryan Heath.
Hi, I'm Ryan Heath. I have a couple clients in this district, 3 students actually, girls, that are experiencing some discomfort using the bathroom. I've actually drafted this here lawsuit about to file. And I'm here because I want to try to get a few more girls in the district that are uncomfortable with boys using the female facilities to help me file this lawsuit. Unfortunately, this school district seems to think it's appropriate to allow male students to access female facilities. It's not. I'm a father of 2 little girls, and frankly, I'm infuriated. This district thinks it's okay for boys to be in private spaces where girls are undressing and being exposed to potential harm. You know, it violates the Establishment Clause, not only of the United States Constitution, but also of the Arizona Constitution, to promote an ideology like gender ideology and allows students who ascribe to this religious practice, which is a religious practice by Supreme Court precedent, Seeger and Welsh. These are United States Supreme Court cases from the Vietnam era that basically held a religion is more than just a set of ideals that is traditionally recognized as a religious practice. It actually is a set of ideals that anyone ascribes to, and it's their ultimate concern. And gender ideology is a dogmatic set of ideas that teaches children lies. And this school district is about to get sued for it. And so if you have a parent out there, if you're a parent out there and you have students in this district and you're sick of this practice, I implore you to go to heathlaw.com. Email me at info@heathlaw.com. We're going to be filing this lawsuit under seal to protect the identities of the parents and the students. Because I know personally what it's like to be attacked by the lunatics that are teaching children they can change their sex. So we're coming after you, and we're going to protect the girls. Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Charmel Bolster.
Good evening, President Proudfoot, Board, Cabinet, and a special welcome to you, Dr. Summers. It's good to see you sitting up there. I would just like to say, in kind of an uplifting comment, how proud I have been and how wonderful it's been to see the seniors that have spoken publicly here and talk about the programs that they have been in. It has been wonderful to listen to their speaking skills, and I love public speaking, and they have done a wonderful job. It just warms my heart to know that our high schools have these programs here for these students to experience what they think they might want to go into after they leave this district. It would also be my hope that the board would keep in mind that I think it's essential for every single student in this district before they leave here to make sure that they have an idea of what they want to do with their life by the time they leave, and then have a pathway to achieve their goal. And I think along with that, not only is the academic knowledge important, and of course we're all concerned about those almighty scores, and that is important, we need that. But what has impressed me even more with these students is not only their academic knowledge, but the fact that the way they present themselves to you and to everyone here. That, I think, is terrific. And I would like to think that every single student in this district has that ability to present themselves, the way they stand, the way their command of the English language, the way they speak, and they have that confidence that they can go out in the world and present themselves to anyone and accomplish their goals. It's going to make the difference, having been an adjudicator both in the musical field and as an educator, that it's going to make the difference when you have equal candidates, which one is the good candidate and which one is the great candidate. So I would just encourage you to be sure that those goals are included in the academic program before these students leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Micah Dyer.
I defer my time to Rachel Barnett.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Barnett. I want to quickly preface this comment by saying that though I am a school board member in a different district and serve as the officer in the Arizona School Board Association, I am not here speaking from either of these platforms. I speak tonight as a former employee of Peoria Unified School District, a mother whose children were previously students in this district, and as the Arizona State Secretary of the NAACP. It troubles me to say that I am not at all surprised to hear what is presently unfolding in this district. Not from the news, but instead from a client that I serve who is also a senior at Peoria High School. It was actually she who asked me to come out tonight and speak on her behalf. Peoria Unified School District has a startling history of covering up abuse of the children. In fact, the teachers who contact DCS or law enforcement to report abuse aren't permitted to testify in court or even to admit that they were the party who reported the abuse at DCS. The district must do better. The shame of sexual misconduct and abuse should never be heaped upon the victim, least of all when the victim's a child. By failing to properly address these incidents as soon as they were brought to the attention of the admin, staff continues to perpetuate the cycle of deception, corruption, and abuse that has long occurred within the hallways of your schools. Administration, by not notifying parents, is complicit in the abuse of these children, many of which remain hidden due to fear and shame. As parents, we need to feel confident that we are entrusting our children to trusted adults, and that if that trust is broken, actions are immediately taken, and that the consequences of said actions are debilitating to that trusted adult. There needs to be independent investigation into not only the incidents that resulted in these 2 arrests, but also other documented and undocumented incidents of misconduct and abuse that have occurred and been ignored. Please do what is right and restore the public's trust in Peoria Unified School District, a district that I personally know has the capacity to be great in all aspects. And in doing so, I believe that you will also regain the ADM that you have lost as you regain the trust of these parents and in your community. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you. And Dr. Summers, Mr. Molino, and Ms. Vesley, will you please follow up with Ms. Barnett? Thank you. Our next public comment, Mark. I don't want to say your last name wrong. Mark?
It's Del Maestro.
Del Maestro.
I know you're having trouble reading it. It's written in cursive, so.
Listen, I can write in cursive.
God chooses the color of our skin, and God chooses if we're a man or a woman, and God chooses our parents, our brothers, and our sisters, and God chooses the nation we are born in, and I don't judge God's choices. Makes no sense to me. But if it makes sense to you, can you explain that? How is it that you think you can judge God's choices? Where do you get off thinking you can? Oh, I don't believe in God. Really? So you can molest children? That's okay? I don't think so. I hope you prosecute these people right to the end, because that's what they deserve. And if you're afraid to do that, step aside. Step aside. I wish I had 10 minutes because I could tell you about Vietnam and how children were used in Vietnam. And these pedophiles and these sick people, I call them Satan's marionettes. They're Satan's marionettes. And they've infiltrated our schools, our churches, our government, everything. And you're just voting out 2? There's a lot more. There's a lot more. And if you're afraid to prosecute them, shame on you. Shame on you. For another minute and a half, I wish I could have more time. But I got to come back for another 3 minutes, and I will. But that's the first thing I'm telling you. If you can't say God in this school, we're doomed. We are doomed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Julia Brown.
Hi, I am Julia. I have autism. This is my little stimming device. What I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you about how people with autism are connected with the LGBTQ community. There's a study about how many of us are in the LGBT community, but it is high for people who are in the LGBT community. That's about 5% of the population. For those who are in the autism community, that's around 0.2% of the population. So 1 in 45 adults are people with autism. What hurts people with autism is when we make these blanket statements about how we're born and what we're born into and all of this stuff. I identify more with my autism than I identify with my, be it whether I'm a woman or a man or any of that jazz, because quite frankly, people with autism are sidelined. And we are treated like we are less than human. That God's love does not come down and reach us because we're animals. Of the white people killed in police encounters, all but one was a person with autism. People with autism are also 8 to 9 times more likely to commit suicide than neurotypical people. And we are also more prone to being abused, generally by cisgender men. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Christina Tooby.
Good evening again. I just wanted to highlight some wonderful things at Vistancia, my school. We had a great junior high dance actually last night. Our school store is thriving. Our PTO has partnered with our community and they pack a snack cart with the help of community members, which is amazing. Our drama club performance this year, Frozen Junior, it was phenomenal. Outdoor ed had only spots of snow this year, thank goodness. We had an amazing time fundraising for that to help offset the cost for families. We're gearing up for an amazing Beauty and the Beast performance next year led by Mrs. Pinkerton. We're halfway completed with state testing. That was wonderfully organized by Mrs. Bennett, Mrs. Steele, and Mrs. Slater. This year, we have hit the fire and ran with it were the Heat. Our girls volleyball had a wonderful season. The boys worked hard in football, baseball, and softball flew past. Our third graders read over 10,000 chapters this year. Our PTO department put on a wonderful field day week. Preschool was able to search for leprechauns. Our scholars of all ages have enjoyed various purchases of being the principal for the day or shadowing their favorite teacher rewards. Our choir sang at the Suns game. Our librarian, hosted a fabulous book fair where I scooped up a couple more of my favorites. Our kinders had a fun Valentine's Day party. Sixth graders had a great time out at Greek Fest. It was one of my son's favorite things. Our cheerleaders have been incredible this year, if you've been able to spot any of them, with a special thanks to their coach, Biederman. Our second grade put on a fabulous wax museum. I wasn't able to see it though because I was at outdoor ed. Oh yeah, and we were featured on the news. It was fabulous if anyone got to see it. The whole school did the Continental Drift. We're launching into wrapping up state testing. We're celebrating our very own young artists with our steel drums, gearing up for a trip to Disneyland. Our NJHS is getting ready to pie a very lucky teacher. I hope I'm not on the losing end of that. Things are incredible happening at my home, Vistancia, and you're welcome up there anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Brenda Baxter.
Hi, I'm Brenda Baxter. One thing I want to say, I've never met her personally, but I am 100% behind Heather Brooks. She is the only member that I know of that stuck up for what is right. Now, you guys say you all have kids in the school district, right? Do you really want your girls going in the men's bathrooms and in their PE rooms? I mean, my grandchildren have never seen a man, and to think that they have to go to school and be in a locker room with another man, that just doesn't sit well with me. And one thing that I will say is, you say that the school, the people, you've lost a lot of students. When you make decisions for the whole school district, just know that that's going to affect other people and whether they keep their kids in the school district or go to a charter school or homeschool. So that may be one of the reasons you've lost a lot of kids. Anyway, and I'm behind Rebecca Hill too. So anyway, and one thing I wanted to ask you, I don't know what your responsibility is, but be aware of what books go in the library. Please be aware of what our kids are being subject to when they read in the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Bishop Carter. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Dr. Tara Armstead.
Hello. I'm obviously Dr. Tara Armstead. I'm a current Arizona administrator and educator. I do not work in Peoria Unified School District, but most of my experience is here in Arizona. This is the second board meeting that I've had to come to and speak up for students. I have served on a board previously, and when I spoke truth, I was attacked for it. There is no rhyme or reason why this should have happened in this district. And I can guarantee that there were students that were talking about this, that had mentioned this, and it was swept under the rug because a lot of the times when students speak, we have been trained to dismiss it as them trying to just get rid of an educator. This is an individual that had access to many children, not only in this district, but in this community. We have to get to the point of recognizing a background check is not going to catch these things. They are targeting specific children, children who come from single-parent households, and children who will fear adults that are in positions of power. I have a child myself, and I am a single parent. The solution is not just prosecuting these individuals and putting them into prison. There are more, and they are the ones that we highlight. The situation in Independence High School, that individual was a teacher of the year. These individuals that do this, they know that they're not going to get in trouble. Students speak every single day, whether verbally or in their behavior, to let you know there are no cameras in classrooms, and there are teachers who smile in administrators' faces while they are verbally and mentally abusing teachers in the classroom. I see it every day as an administrator. I call it out, and that is why here in this state, people do not like me. I don't care if this child is black, white, Asian, whatever you are. We need to get to the point of recognizing we are going to continue to have systemic issues in education. We're going to continue to lose students if we do not let those children speak and be heard. If we do not have an opportunity to train parents and students on how to speak up, we will go through this again. I have been in various districts. This is not the first time, and this will not be the last time. You are a bigger district. Please let your students speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment, Tiffany Benson.
Right. Tiffany Benson. I'm a parental rights advocate, the founder of Restore Parental Rights in Education. This situation is too easy. So basically, what you will be to blame for in this district is if you let the situation be swept under the rug. If you don't prosecute the people, if you just let them retire, if you just do this thing quietly, that's the wrong thing to do. We need to set an example that it is not okay to abuse children. So I'm also waiting for the results of a public records request for the bathroom remodel that's happening. We have parents who are concerned that we're getting some unisex facilities in our high schools. And so on that note, I also wanted to plug the lawsuit for John Heath. If there are parents and you're concerned about identity being exposed or anything like that, don't worry about that. We would rather you speak up and we can keep your identity hidden than to say nothing. If your child was a victim in the district, if anything like that, come forward. You can join as a Jane Doe or a John Doe. Your information is protected. You can even contact me through my organization, restoreparentalrights.org. And I wanted to welcome Dr. Summers, a warm welcome to the whirlwind, okay? You mentioned during your comments that you wanted to align your position with leaders. You used the word leaders. And here's what I want to say. You can't be a leader if you consider yourself a reluctant politician. You can't be a leader if you're here for your own reasons, your own agenda. You have your own plans. You can't be here if you're not here. You can't be here if you're not here for the good teachers who are sticking it out through controversy and not being paid enough, excuse after excuse. These are your constituents. No disrespect to all of the PhDs and EDDs in your administration, but you're not here for them. You're here for all these people, the people who knocked doors for you, for those who campaigned, the people who voted you in. That's everybody. That's not just six-figure people with PhDs. So you can be a leader if you're here for families, if you're here for students, if you're here for good teachers. You can also be a leader if you want to remove all of the race and gender propaganda out of your curriculum and get back to the main thing, which is academics. If you don't have an interest in that, if you don't have an interest in academics at all, because that's what a school district is about, if you don't have an interest in that, then you should consider yourself dismissed.
Thank you. Our next comment is Bishop Anthony Holt.
Thank you, Madam President, other members of the board. I am the State Conference Arizona President of the NAACP. One of our concerns is that our children are being subjected to fear, lies, and manipulation. Why do I say that? I have parents calling me, telling me that they have children that are coming home that are abused, beat up, no incident reports. Ask the school board for incident reports, they don't exist. We don't know what you're talking about. I have parents asking, why is my child afraid to talk to their teacher? Or if they talk to their teacher, the teacher's afraid because now the teacher has to hold on to something or fear they'll lose their job. I'm not saying that is the fact in every school system. I'm not saying that's the fact in every school district. However, those are the parents that do represent these children in this district as well as others. What we're asking you tonight is, when I hear Madam President talk about how proud she is of her children that are in this district, she smiled, and that made me feel good. But then I asked her, I said, would you want your child to come home with a black eye or a broken arm, and somebody could not tell you what happened or why it happened? That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear that the same members that's on that side of the desk, who are parents, who are educators, who believe in academics, are the same ones that say that to the parents out here, we stand behind you, we trust you, we are going to be there for your children, because when they come to us, they are with you to be protected, to be raised, and to be educated. Now, why do I say raised? Because they spend so much time with you. You are their other side of their understanding of what life is. But if that life starts to change in the day that they walk into a school system, then we walk around with a bunch of kids who are angry, who are behavioral issues, who are scared, who are frightened, that do not need to be that. We're talking about kids, we need to be engineers. We're talking about kids, we need to be scientists. They need to be able to go out and learn and be able to grow. And when they graduate, be proud of the school system they came from. Not say, well, you know, I graduated, but they hid everything that happened to me. So us as the NAACP, we are an advocate group. And we watch, and we listen, and we talk. And we want to make sure that when it's time to elect and it's time to support, that we know where we're going, because our parents are always going to be the ones on the front line, and our kids are always going to be our main concern. So tonight I applaud you for the work you do, but I also appeal to you to do a greater work to make sure our children are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Quentin Ducksworth.
Good evening to the board. I'm going to keep it simple. Pretty much everybody spoke about what I wanted to comment about. So I'm going to wrap it up and say, use my time in saying, all you teachers and educators in here, you got my 199% support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment, Dr. Pinky Langdon.
Good evening, everybody. I am Dr. Pinky Langdon, and I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I have 3 PhDs, psychology, sociology, and anthropology. And I wear many hats. I am a member of the League of Women Voters, AAUW, which is the it's for women of it's the Association of Women who are University Women. And I'm also the state secretary for the NAACP. But tonight, I am here with the hat on as the CEO of the Broken Wings Club. Now, what that is, it's an organization that I started back in 2003, where I help reentry for first-time offenders. And one of the things that we talk about is mental illness, the trauma that they had as a child. And a lot of it comes back from childhood. They don't want to go to prom, they don't want to go to graduation, they just want to be gone. I grew up, I'm Gen X. I'm 54 years old. So I'm just saying, and I look good because I stayed away from drugs, alcohol, and bad men, but not necessarily in that order. So I'm just gonna say this. We have to make sure that we have monies allocated for mental illness, because a lot of that comes back to what Sigmund Freud said. Let's talk about your mother, let's talk about your childhood, let's talk about what type of social environment you were in as a child. And as far as these educators, my mother told me, don't be a teacher. And I said, why? She said, because they're gonna be laid off, and you like to shop and look pretty. So that's not the job for you. I said, well, I'm gonna get my master's degree. She says, you're not getting it. Your father and me are paying for your lifestyle. You're gonna have to get a job to handle it for yourself. So I went into engineering. So I'm always with a job, and I'm always looking to mentor. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Sarah Tyree.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, educators, family, and students. My name is Sarah Tyree. I am the Vice President of the Arizona NAACP State Conference. I'm here today on behalf of the Peoria Unified students, on behalf of students of color who are or have experienced physical or sexual violence within the school district. They will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. The Arizona NAACP and its membership are requesting that you, the board, hold a study session, not just for the case that was released yesterday, but for all students that have been harmed in the recent months and years. It is our hope that when the board conducts their study session, they include Black and brown families in this discussion before, during, and after. The NAACP calls on you to do the right thing, to bring these injustices to light. No more breeding violence with silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Rachel Barnett. Did you have two written? I think. Yeah. All right, next is Teddy Todd.
Good evening, President Proudfit and Clerk. Hi, David. I always have trouble with your last name, but that's me. And Mrs. Melissa and Mrs. Rookson. A special welcome to Dr. Casey Summers. You're our bright spot at the moment. You get to earn our trust, and I believe you will. It's time for some changes and for us to continue to improve. And all these wonderful people in here, wow, this is fantastic. To be able to speak. We, the people, are the consumers of public education. And public education, sorry to say, is government education. So much of what we have for money, which is very little, has stipulations on it, and that it is very difficult for our cabinet to really pull it together for all that they know needs to be done. There is simply not enough. There are many, many goals, many objectives for us to all consider and to make decisions of what do we need to really do. You have a very good strategic plan. It has way too much in it. And many of the things are ongoing. It is a great base for us to begin in this next time with Dr. Summers as to how we move forward together. We, the parents, are the government. We, the people, are the payers of all this money that comes in, which still isn't enough. It never will be. So decisions must be made. And we've made a lot of progress this year, and I want to thank all of those cabinet members who have been educating me as to what goes on, how, and what we might do in the future. And I really do appreciate all the people of our community who speak up. It takes courage, and we have to overcome whatever fears we have to speak up. Safety is extremely important. With our borders open, heaven only knows how our students will be in the next few years or who they will be. It's going to be rather challenging. Our teacher pay must be increased. It's always been too low. I'm old.
I'm sorry, it's time, Mrs.
And
Todd.
it's my time up. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
It'll work. You go.
Our next public comment is Karen Smith.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith. My first time at a board meeting ever, so I was glad to be here. Glad that you guys are doing a good job, and I'm here to support Heather and Rachel. I pray that you'll make it through this big decisions that you have to make. Enormous things before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment is Becky Smith.
I wanted to start with thanking Peoria Unified for putting out a statement and acknowledging the issue that happened at Peoria High School. And I was glad to hear it addressed publicly and that background checks had been done. I know that's what you have to start with. Sadly, those who like to access children may seek out professions or volunteer positions that get them close to children, and we all need to realize that and take all the precautions that we can, as well as take any complaints or concerns about behavior or inappropriate content or conversations very seriously. Sexually driven concerns or conversations, in my opinion, are not appropriate at school, and that's why there's specialists for these issues, and they should only occur with a licensed therapist outside of the school day with the consent of a parent to prevent blurring these lines at school. There are a few concerning comments on the Peoria Police Department page on Facebook regarding these types of issues in the past at Peoria High School. I hope that the individuals making these statements are contacted to find out the details of what they're saying. It may be that we need a full investigation at that high school, or maybe in general, as people are speaking tonight. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that the previous basketball coach at Peoria High School also had some allegations. It is kind of frustrating that someone who chose not to put students and their safety first gets to be on paid leave. If she's terminated, hopefully she doesn't get to keep her retirement, because that to me is not fair either, that we have teachers who maybe could use that money. And some of the Facebook profile pictures she posts kind of support movements and ideals that have been brought up in this boardroom. You guys have the opportunity right now to set a precedence that in this district we will not tolerate pedophiles or their protectors. Even protecting a pedophile is inappropriate. Please make sure that this lesson is loud and clear. People are watching. And I would hope that everyone in this room that comes from all different walks of life can agree that this situation is horrifying and very serious and should be dealt with strictly. The union made a bunch of comments and statements when Rebecca Hill was stepping down, but I don't know if there's been a statement made denouncing the behavior of these employees, because I would assume that that's something they would not support. And the real question is, if our enrollment is being hit so hard, is anybody asking why? Like, why? Why? When a student unenrolls, are we asking, why did you unenroll? Why are you leaving our district? Because the big question is why, so we can fix the problem. And if we're not asking why, how are we going to fix the problem?
Thank you. Our next comment is Bill Dembski.
Yeah, my name is Bill Demske. I reside in Glendale. Both my daughters went to Cactus and Foothills, so I've been around for a while. But how many of the people get New Times Magazine? It came out last week. It was a great magazine for many years, and then they fell off a little. Now they've been having some great exposés. And last week's edition, I was so incensed. The filth that was brought about, school district and 2 board members, it's pathetic. Anybody that reads this will be sickened to the bone. I imagine when you were sworn in, you took an oath to the Constitution, to honor the Constitution and honor every citizen of the United States. I took it twice. I'm a former cop and I was in the military. I took these oaths, and to my dying day, I honored the Constitution. 2 board members, one left last year and the one present one, what they put this teacher through and what they're going to, there was a federal a U.S. District Court lawsuit filed last month. Anybody know about that? This teacher, you know, Trump got nailed for $484 million. I hope she gets more from 2 school board members and the school district. She had rocks. One of the school board members put her name on the internet, her address and name. She had rocks thrown at her home windows. She had her tires slashed. These filthy lies. She was never charged with anything by the police. She was never charged with anything by the school district. And these 2 ignoramus school board members, they're still at it. They were warned twice by the district lawyers, what you're saying, what you're doing is illegal. And it's all going to come out in district court, all the filth that was generated to this poor teacher. It's unimaginable. Like I said, I hope to God she gets more than what Trump was nailed for. But some of the stupid, God in school, the separation of church and state, God in, like school board members, they had their God. Their God is brought up, their God. What their God stands for, God only knows. Hate, dissension, whatever. But the school board members that left, she told the people in the district to unenroll your students.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Yeah, okay, get with it. But like I said, you want to read a great article.
Next public comment, Tamara Farah.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Tamara Farah, and I direct Arizona Women of Action Smart Schools Network. In the wake of recent troubling events, Smart Families Network calls upon the board to ensure the safety of all students and respect for parental rights in their education. The urgency of this call to action is underscored by recent incidents that have shaken this community. Many of you have heard of these. But just to recap, just yesterday we learned of the arrest of Patrick Batillo, Peoria High School basketball coach, on charges related to child sex crimes. These disturbing events demand our collective vigilance in safeguarding students, as has been mentioned by many here this evening. Beyond this, the district faces ongoing challenges, including allegations of child abuse and the legal action taken by a transgender and non-binary teacher in response to the reports they were sexually grooming kids in the classroom. Additionally, board member Heather Rooks is in litigation fighting for her constitutional right to freedom of expression and religious liberty. As a network, we prioritize children's well-being, as I know you do as well. And we must support, as we do, parents as they're navigating the education system, many of whom are upset and beside themselves regarding some of these matters happening in your schools at this time. Having said that, I want to make it clear that we advocate for kindness, respect, regardless of race, color, creed, or sex. Don't misunderstand our desire to see a focus on academics in our classrooms across Arizona when we talk about that topic and when we come up against the sexualizing of children in the classrooms through supplemental materials and teacher-driven conversations and comments. And I'd like to say emphatically, the sexualization of children, not to mention the sexual abuse of children, does not belong in schools. We must focus on academics. We saw Paradise Valley drop 20 to 30% in their math and ELA scores since 2010. I would like to suggest that children are greatly distracted by even just focusing alone on the sexualization that's going on, the pressure as to whether or not they are have implicit bias inside their beings. These children are being intimidated and disturbed by things that have nothing to do with their academic proficiency.
Sorry, your time is up.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next comment, Victoria Guerrero.
Hello, my name is Victoria Rojas. My son's name is Diego Guerrero. And he goes to Kachina Elementary School. Today's my heart is heavy with the pain my son Diego has suffered. In November, he came home with a black eye that he received in school. Diego is in the Autism Aware program at Kachina Elementary School. He came home with a black eye with no incident report and no explanation. Since November, I have removed Diego from Kachina because Kachina has failed to keep him safe. That was not the first injury that he has suffered, but it will be the last. I have been fighting for Diego to get placed in a private school. Because Kachina, the RISE program, has failed my son. Not just my son, but others. There's other children out there that have stepped forward. My son, the story was in the Arizona Republican newspaper. As soon as the story came out, families have stepped forward. This reflects a broken system that fails to protect Diego and recognize his worth. Despite my plea to Lori Garcia and the principal, Mr. Chandler, nothing's changed. Diego's safety, well-being, and education were discarded. Every child, including Diego, deserves a safe and nurturing environment. We demand attention, not empty promises. We demand action. We need cameras in classrooms for safety and more support from training professional who understands each child's needs. The RISE program has failed my child and many, many more like him who is nonverbal and can't defend themselves. It's time for change. It's time for justice. It's time for every child to be seen, heard, and valued. Mr. Chandler called our story a distraction. Our children deserve better. Our children are not a distraction. Thank you.
Thank you.
My son, Diego Guerrero, came home with a black eye. He's not.
Mr. Summers and Mr. Molina, will you please follow up with Ms. Guerrero? Our next public comment is from Janelle Bowles.
Give me a second. Thank you for sharing. I was trying not to do this. For those of you who know me, I've worked with special ed in this district for 9 years. Sorry, I did not mean to start crying. Maybe we should. I'm just going to say, get to the point. I'm requesting a full investigation done by ADE in the state of Arizona regarding abuse allegations within our special ed department. I want the governing board to ask for an investigation into these allegations. I've spoken with other parents, not just the one that spoke tonight. We have 6 to 7 families that are coming together just in one autism program. There's more. I mean, what do I even say? I'm not even the parent. This should concern us. When we do not value children, we need to close the doors. They have been denied incident reports. Remember when I stood up here and did a behavior assessment on Mr. Sandoval? Thank you, by the way, Mr. Sandoval. He did not know I was going to do that. These incident reports that parents are being told are just for administration and teachers. That's not what we were told in this podium, but that's what you heard, not just from me, but other people. They're denied the incident reports, so they can't even follow up on what really happened. And in some cases, some of these students have been denied an education since November. What are we doing?
Thank you. Our last public comment is Victoria Rojas. Okay. That concludes our public comment section for this evening.
President Proudfit, if I may, I know Clerk Sandoval is aware that when public comment, if there is an address to a governing board member during that public comment, a board member has the time to respond to that public comment.
Yep, continue.
I just wanted to clarify that I have never shared anybody's address in my entire life online or with other people. So I just wanted to clarify that statement that was made.
Thank you. Moving on to section 10, informational reports. 10.1, report on upcoming meetings and event. Ms. Ari, do you have anything?
President Proudfit, nothing to add. Thank you.
Moving on to section 10.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, President Proudfit, members of the governing board, Dr. Summers. Good evening again. As of April 5th, during this legislative session, 183 bills have passed, 83 of the bills have been signed, and 18 bills were vetoed. In addition, the legislature and the governor are currently working on the fiscal year 2025 budget. Today, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, also referred to as the JLBC, reported that state revenue has improved marginally. The JLBC reported the state general fund revenue shortfall, has declined to $650 million this fiscal year and $676 million for next year, for a combined total shortfall of $1.3 billion. After adjusting for one-time spending items, the JLBC reported the state will need $1.8 billion of shortfall solutions. This number is a decrease from the $2.2 billion amount that was reported in January. There's progress, but still a substantial shortfall. But progress is good news as the work continues to finalize the fiscal year 2025 budget, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 10.3, district report is available on our website. 10.4, district enrollment reports, also available on the website. Moving on to section 11. 11.1, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Start with Mrs. Ewing.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
I don't have any items either.
Dr. Sorensen.
No, ma'am.
Mrs. Rooks.
No, thank you.
And there is none for me. Moving on to 11.2, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Start with Mrs. Ewing.
One of the things I want to say is that we spend, I do have a request. We spend a lot of time talking about our building safety and all of the great things we're doing. I know that we had great attendance at the safety conference last year. We had good attendance this year at the safety conference, but those things are all related to building safety. I know that there was a conference last year that our social work team that has to do with student safety was not able to be attended. I know it's coming up this fall. So my request, getting back to my request, is that we regularly get updates on safety and security updates, and I would like to add that we're getting a student safety report on as well, so that we can understand the incidences that are happening. Are we getting a decrease? What are all the things that we're doing with regards to that? I think it would be good for this board and this community to be aware of the laws and policies that we do have in place, that when situations happen, what we must follow. So I think that would be important, but I think that we regularly need to be getting updates on student safety. So thank you. And however that is best happens. I realize that if we were talking about individual things, those would need to, and students were named, those would need to happen in an executive session. So.
I'll second that.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. It was brought up this evening, but I would like to have a line item in a future study session in and around our processes tied to background checks, our associate background checks, what those look like, the different layers that take place, how often they take place, right? And really also take a look at, as times change, is it something that we need to adapt? And again, add more layers to.
I will second that.
Great. Dr. Sorensen?
No, ma'am.
Mrs. Ricks?
So I guess I have a few. Sorry, I've been writing down a lot of notes, so I apologize. I would like to have this can be a future agenda item, whether a study session or governing board meeting. I want to have a discussion and look into our ARISE programs in our district. I have a lot of questions that I feel needs to be addressed in regards to what are our processes, what are our procedures, are we doing documenting incident reports, why are we not doing, we need to be able to see an update of our ARISE programs. I believe we have 6 of them at the 6 elementary schools, if I'm right. So that's just one item that I would like to request.
I will second.
Thank you. The next one is I would like to have a, whether it's a review, update, action report, timeline of the incident at Peoria High School with the 2 employees. I just feel as a board we need to be aware of the situation that occurred. I want to know the timeline of what happened. I want to know the after effects of what had occurred, and I'd like to know if the 2 employees are going to be submitted to the Arizona State Board of Education, because I feel like that needs to be addressed at the state level as well.
I will second.
Thank you. The last thing is this can just be a Friday report. I wanted to see what our staffing models look like at each school, evaluation-wise, I guess, from a site-to-site based on the enrollment. So what is our staff ratio based on that enrollment of the schools? And I know that might take a while, so that's fine, but just future-wise. Sorry.
I will second.
Thank you again.
Beat you to it.
sorry, I'm losing my voice here. The last thing is this can be Friday report too, is I'm just wondering, I've heard that there's something called an MOU in different districts with their education associations. So I just didn't know if we have a current one, and if that's possible to be provided to the board in a Friday report.
I will second.
Thank you. And that is it. So thank you.
I wanted to go back to a comment that was made by Ms. Barnett. I would like to see at a future, as a line item on a future study session, opening up the discussion about what the existing needs are within the district. As times change, doing more proactive training to recognize vulnerable populations who are susceptible to this kind of abuse. And the more information we have, the better we can do for our students. I think we need to really open up that conversation. The second thing, I kind of wanted to piggyback off what Mr. Sandoval said. I have some questions, so probably same line item on a study session, but I also want to know, with teachers who are, with a coach situation as we had at Peoria High School, with it not being a district employee, how does it not being an employee? Is there gaps where because they're not an employee, the same processes aren't followed? I just want to be very clear on what those processes are for employees, for the different levels of staff, but in addition for coaches. My child is a student athlete, and we've had 2 coach incidents in the past few weeks, and the thing that is very concerning to me about that is teachers have a massive impact on children. I'm not discounting that, but there is something a little bit more intense, or at least that's what I've experienced as a parent when an adult steps into that coach role. It almost becomes an automatic mentorship, and I just think that's something we need to look at very closely, and perhaps even open the conversation of doing some due diligence and some background work on the existing coaches in our district to ensure that those relationships and the people we have in those positions are that we're comfortable with moving forward.
I will second both of those items if they go together or if they're separate,
Yes.
but I'll do both.
Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes our meeting for tonight. I move to adjourn this meeting at 9:25 p.m.
I'll second that.
Motion made by myself and a second made by Mr. Sandoval. Motion passes with 5 yeas. Meeting is adjourned, and thank you everyone for coming.